The following podcast contains adult language and subject matter. Listener discretion is advised.
Greetings, Dr. Beckett. Welcome to the Quantum Leap Podcast.
Live from Juan's secret basement, you're listening to episode 38 of the Quantum Leap Podcast, the Great Spontini.
There you go, there you go.
Yeah.
Theorizing that one could time travel within his own lifetime, Dr. Sam Beckett stepped into the Quantum Leap Accelerator and vanished. He awoke to find himself trapped in the past, facing mirror images that were not his own, and driven by an unknown force to change history for the better. His only guide on this journey is Al, an observer from his own time, who appears in the form of a hologram that only Sam can see and hear. And so Dr. Beckett finds himself leaping from life to life, striving to put right what once went wrong, and hoping each time that his next leap will be the leap home.
Quantum leaping through time, I found myself in some pretty tight spots, but this was definitely the tightest.
And now, for the Sword of Doom. Ladies and gentlemen, the Great Spontini!
I'm a magician.
Harry, I want a divorce.
Bingo. Divorce?
Margaret and I are engaged. We'd like to get the paperwork moving.
Steve's also my attorney.
Watch your wallet, Sam. Here it comes. I think I'm here to reunite this family. Spontini never stopped loving Maggie, and I think she still loves him. I mean, you can see it in her eyes.
She left him and the kids. She went off to school, got a real estate license. She started a whole new life.
But she came back.
To get a divorce.
I don't think so. I think she came back because she still loves him.
I don't want to live with her.
No, it's only temporary. Until the hearing's over.
Don't I have a choice?
No, not in this one.
But I'll be back here first thing in the morning. You know, I figured out where we're blowing that table of death illusion.
The judge says you can't come to the club.
Didn't you tell him you need me for the act?
He doesn't think that a nightclub is a good place for a young girl to be working.
Is he nuts or something? I'm learning a trade.
He wants you in a real home. That's why I'm taking you to your mother's in 2 hours.
We can run away. I can pack.
If we don't show up, the police will throw me in jail and you'll end up at your mother's anyway.
Harry, don't let them take me away.
Why do they call it the table of death?
Because 2 guys have died doing it.
2 guys have died?
You're better than them, Harry.
Sam, it's Jamie.
What about Jamie?
She's trying to do that table of death trick. Yeah, and if you don't do something about it, she's gonna die. Ziggy says you got 14 minutes.
Welcome back to the Quantum Leap Podcast. I'm Albie.
And I'm Heather.
I'm Juan.
And I'm Gabe.
I was almost Gabe.
You can be Gabe. We can do that.
Oh, man, we have a great show on this episode of Quantum Leap Podcast. We have Dan Birch, magic consultant, and also man in the mirror, just like Michael. And, of course, some special guest hosts, Gabe and Juan from Thinking Outside the Long Box Podcast.
Sorry.
Swears. But, yeah, it's going to be another great episode of Quantum Leap Podcast, guys. Thanks for joining us.
Thinking Outside the Long Box has invaded the Quantum Leap Podcast. If you like this show, check them out at totlb.com.
I feel like you invaded our podcast. Like you're
I might have.
You're in our space.
You're in my house.
We are. We're in your studio. Thank you.
Studio.
Hey, man.
It's got
This
mics.
is the closest thing to a studio we're going to get.
It's got a soundboard.
It's got me.
You know Juan. He's our producer and our
I don't know if
everything
people
guy.
do know me.
You read the feedback?
Yeah.
He's the guy that reads the feedback.
There's one guy who drove me away from the show, but we won't talk about that.
And if you don't know,
Who
Gabe,
you are.
You haven't been listening to Thinking Outside the Long Box, and you need to start at the beginning, right?
Yeah.
No, don't start at the beginning.
Can they just jump in?
It's worth it. I've been listening to early episodes because I've been cutting the interviews into YouTube videos.
Oh, cool.
Oh, it's terrible. It's like so. Listening to our Rob Bruce interview, like every time he answers a question, I'm like, that's awesome.
I just remember like the traffic going by and the sounds, and you left it in.
Well, there's no way to edit that out.
I do it on purpose. There is, but I do it on purpose. I want people to know he's out on the street in New York.
Juan did it.
Yeah.
Philadelphia.
Juan did it.
Was he wherever he was?
He's in Philadelphia.
Born and raised.
You were born and raised in Philadelphia?
No, not
Just
at all.
like a certain prince.
Yeah. You moved to
The
Bel Air?
artist formerly?
No.
Freshman.
Oh.
The guy from Independence Day. Born and raised on the playground.
That's where he's going. Nope. Not doing that on Facebook.
We're live right now.
We're live on Facebook. Hashtag QLP.
Oh.
I don't know.
I was like, what the hell is that?
That's the show we're on right now.
There's like a brief moment where I was like, Quilp?
Quilp?
What is Quilp?
What's Quilp?
Quilp.
Is this like a sex thing? I don't know. Oh, man. I'm ruining your show.
No, you're making it better. You're making it better.
Watching.
Hey, hello, who is
probably
it?
my wife. She's like,
Is it Mel? Hi, Mel.
Nope, somebody left us.
They're like, this is not what I meant to click on.
This doesn't sound like the Quantum Leap podcast. I don't know
my
what's
gosh.
on.
Are we live on TOTLB or
Yeah.
QLP?
Quantum Leap.
Oh, are we?
my
Wow.
God. Awesome.
Quantum Leap.
Oh, well, that's lame.
I'm a Quantum Leap admin, sir.
Well,
this is what we're doing
If they
right
have
now.
any feedback during the episode, let us know.
So,
Does anybody have any feedback?
if you lose listeners, sorry.
No, we'll gain them because you're going to hype it way up on TOTLB, right, Juan?
The Quantum Leap commented on our own Facebook Live, who I assume is Hayden right now.
Hi, Hayden.
I like they comment. That's what you yell at me
Yes,
about.
I know.
Hey, Hayden, if that's who's watching, immediately like everything on the Quantum Leap page
I'm
as
deleting.
Quantum Leap
I'm
podcast.
I'm deleting.
Just go like everything. It drives Juan nuts and it's amazing.
What are we talking about here?
We are talking about
here
the
for an
Great
episode?
Spontini, Season 3, Episode 8 of Quantum Leap. Heather, first thoughts.
It was not my... I don't know. I don't know how I feel about this episode. It's very... I have a lot of feels. But first thought, I didn't like it that much.
That's okay. That's okay. Yeah, every episode can't be for everyone. It's okay if you don't like one. That means you're being honest. That's
That doesn't happen often. I don't usually dislike Quantum Leap episodes.
Were there things about it that you did like?
Yeah, I mean, it was still a Quantum Leap episode. It was still a good, like, Quantum Leap-y episode, but I don't know. There are much better ones.
Okay, I could see that. Okay, Gabe, first thoughts.
So my first thought is I remember watching this as a kid. Like, it's one of the episodes that my dad really liked, and I was like, yeah, that's a good one. Like, I'm kind of with you. Like, so I haven't been watching them, so this is just like a shot in the dark, like a random Quantum Leap episode that I watched last night. So, I mean, it's Quantum Leap, and it's a good episode. Kid Peril's always fun in TV shows. Because I'm like, no, I'm a dad. That's awful.
Right.
Why are you handcuffing yourself to that? Sorry, swears.
It's okay. It's okay.
I know.
I'm going to say...
We both already
I'm gonna
jacked
say
it up.
Swears like every
We
time
already
I swear. But, like, it's Quantum Leap. It was a good episode just because it's a good episode of Quantum Leap. I haven't seen in forever. I have other thoughts, but they're digging deeper. So
Yeah, it's
initial thoughts is that was a thing. I watched it.
That's good. I'm glad you watched it. Totally sober, right?
Oh yeah, super sober. Definitely.
I mean, legally sober.
Legally
here
sober in Colorado.
Yeah.
Yes.
I definitely ripped my bong super hard before I watched this.
Juan.
It wasn't that good. It's not one. I remember before we even watched it, I was like, I remember this one just not being good.
Yeah.
It's too fast, and there's just not much to it.
It did go by quick.
Yeah, the only thing is the thing almost falling on her, and that's
Kid
it.
Peril.
Like,
Kid
yeah,
Peril's
that's
always
it.
fun, man.
That was my least favorite
There's
part.
not
I
like
don't know.
you. Well, but I mean, in most of these episodes, there's a lot of ups and downs, and that was just it.
One of these parents is a caring parent. Albie's
But
like,
which one?
I don't like the part where the kids threaten. I'm like, it's off. The kid almost dies.
Gets impaled by 19 spikes at once.
A terrible little actress almost dies.
I'm sure we'll talk about that and a lot more after the episode recap.
This is Season 3, Episode 8, The Great Spontini. Written by Christy Dawson and Beverly Bridges, and directed by James Whitmore, Jr. Original broadcast date, November 16th, 1990. With Sam's injuries obtained during the Watts riots freshly healed, it would seem God, or time, or fate, or whatever, has a sick sense of humor, leaping Sam into a tight space surrounded by sharp knives and the sword of doom. Panicking, Sam tears his way out of the box and finds it has just been part of a magic act. It's May 9th, 1974, and Sam is in the aura of a traveling magician named Harry Spontini, known to his fans as the Great Spontini, who often, and usually, performs in cheap nightclubs. His assistant is his precocious 12-year-old daughter, Jamie, who has high hopes for their act. They are aiming to perform on The Magician and earn enough money to buy a magic shop and stop living on the road. After fumbling through the remainder of their act, in illusion of cutting Jamie in half, Sam and Jamie retire to their dressing rooms. Sam is greeted by Harry's girlfriend, who practically ravages him, but mistakes Sam's surprise as Harry not being over his estranged wife, Maggie, who had abandoned him and Jamie 3 years earlier. As luck would have it, Maggie suddenly reappears with her attorney, Steve Slater, announcing her engagement to Steve and asking for a divorce. The next day, at a preliminary divorce hearing, Al, who himself has been through 5 divorces, believes that Maggie wants to take every cent that Harry has. Sam, knowing that Harry wasn't over Maggie, and having seen love in Maggie's eyes, doesn't believe this, and thinks he has leapt there to reunite the family. The hearing proves to be an attempt to blindside Harry. Steve paints Harry as an unfit father and claims that Jamie's living situation is unsuitable. Al is unable to help Sam with any information as the hand link to Ziggy is faulty, and after hitting it around, Al finally breaks it. The judge rules in Maggie's favor and awards her temporary custody of Jamie, ordering that Sam deliver her to Maggie's house by the end of the day. Jamie, who had been deeply hurt when her mother left, is devastated when Sam breaks the news to her, and is adamant that she won't go to live with Maggie. Sam explains that he doesn't have a choice, and that if they ran, he'd end up in jail, and she'd end up with Maggie anyway. With some reassurance from Sam that he will visit her all the time, Jamie agrees, on the condition that they go and check out the new illusion that will get them on The Magician. The trick turns out to be a deadly one, known as the Table of Death. Sam is shocked by the name of the illusion, and is even more shaken when Al informs him it was so named because 2 people had died doing it. Jamie convinces Sam to attempt picking one of the locks on the table. But when he fumbles after Jamie starts the device and nearly loses his arm, Jamie bursts into tears, thinking that this means that Harry does not want to go through with their plans to be on The Magician and open the magic shop. Al, who now has a new hand link, the gummy bear version, tells Sam that his mission is to improve Jamie's future. She runs away from Maggie's house trying to find her father, and ends up living on the street. Later, Sam drops a much calmer Jamie at Maggie's house. While Jamie explores, Sam attempts to make nice with Maggie, reminiscing about the good times they once shared. It's clear that Maggie and Harry still have chemistry, and they end up making out. Sam nearly has Maggie convinced to get back together, but Maggie is triggered when Sam mentions the magic shop. Having heard it all before, she doesn't believe that anything could change. Steve, who has just arrived, is surprised to see Sam in the house. When Sam says he was talking to his wife about his daughter, Steve says that his family only exists on paper and that he won't even have that after the divorce. The next day, Maggie talks to Jamie, hoping to bond with her. Jamie is worried about her father, saying that they are a team and are so close that they can sense when each other are upset or in trouble. Maggie tries to reassure Jamie that he'll be okay and hopes that they can end up being a team too. She leaves Jamie with a babysitter and heads to the divorce hearing. Jamie runs away from Maggie's house and heads to the club to make some adjustments to the table of death. A series of unfortunate events, however, leads to her wrists being locked in place without her pick, trapped on the table with the mechanism starting. The hearing is not going well for Sam. Maggie's testimony is damaging. While Sam is on the stand, Al centers in and warns Sam that Jamie is about to die. Sam says he has a bad feeling that Jamie is in danger and runs, despite the judge's warning he'll be held in contempt of court. Maggie, remembering what Jamie had said, believes Sam and joins him. At the club, Sam and Maggie find Jamie trapped on the table. Maggie tries to delay the machine by putting objects in its path, while Sam picks the lock. He manages to free Jamie 1 second before the spikes come down on top of her. Back at the hearing, Steve tries to hold Sam, Harry, responsible for Jamie's endangerment. But Maggie, who now realizes that Harry and Jamie's bond is too strong and that they shouldn't be separated, withdraws her petition for custody and divorce. Steve argues against this, but having been disgusted by his behavior over the past few days, Maggie dismisses Steve and gives him back his ring. Al tells Sam that Maggie helps Harry and Jamie get a little magic shop not far from her house. Sam kisses Maggie, and then Al reveals that Maggie and Harry get back together 1 year from that day. With a final hug from the reunited family, Sam leaps.
And thank you, Hayden, for that episode recap.
Oh, man, it made me...
And we're back!
That's pretty good.
I practice in the car.
You did John some justice right there.
I am wearing pants, though. That's the difference.
Oh, yeah. John
it really does
pants.
feel like he's not wearing pants.
It does, doesn't it? Like, I don't know if it's the editing or just
it's
the mics.
loose and freeness that we have on our episodes.
Yeah.
We're free to say whatever the we want.
That's awesome.
I know.
There'll be a lot of hand link sounds in this episode. a lot of chamber doors opening and closing.
Which isn't a thing anymore.
What?
Chamber doors opening and closing. When was the last time we saw that?
I didn't hear it. Yeah,
there was an
you're
off-camera
right.
one on this one.
Was there?
Yeah, when he entered the dressing room. There was an off-camera
there
sound.
was
a little bit
there was
of
no graphic. There
No,
hasn't
not
been a
at all.
graphic.
I think
cheaper to
sometimes
not
you
do
get
it.
so used to it that you don't even realize it's happening.
I still laugh every time he's like, "Arr!" Like it's like a seal,
It's all dead.
pterodactyl like noise, and I'm like, "What is that?"
So
Did you notice in this episode he killed the hand link?
Yeah.
They had to switch to the brand new
Totally.
one, the gummy
The
bear.
gummy
one.
bear.
Okay, so that's what I was about to ask. Did he switch computers? Like you were talking about him hitting it, and he had like a weird brown
He's like,
one.
"Oh, I think
And
I
he's
killed
like,
it."
I think I killed it, and then it's like a totally different thing the next
Yep.
time.
They
So
wrote
that's
it
what-
in the
It's just
episode.
a hand link.
Yeah.
Okay, it's
It's his
as
iPhone.
As I was
Yeah.
watching it, I was like, those are two different props.
Continuity error.
Or I'm ridiculously high.
A little bit of both.
Right now.
I'm ridiculously high, guys.
Ridiculous.
Yeah,
me Humpty.
first 3 seasons had the brown one, and then they switched to the gummy bear one.
I got
but
a brown one.
When I was watching the, and his name is Juan.
Keep him in the basement.
That's valid.
Fun.
Let me out.
So that's what this episode is mostly famous for: switching the hand link in the fan.
Well, this is the new. I mean, like this is the more known handling.
Right,
Yeah.
the one
Right.
that everybody thinks of. The other one you don't even think of. It looks like a handheld kid's
Does
computer
not
from the
look-
90s.
No,
Interesting.
it
doesn't-
looks,
that's exactly
it looks
right
like
there.
a chunk of wood.
Yeah.
Right.
Like it doesn't.
It might have been.
or like taped together or
With some
something. It
LEDs.
looks so. Like I remember, like as I was watching the episode, like at the beginning of the episode, I was like, "What is that thing that he's holding? Like, did he break it or something?" Because I
it a
remember,
loaner?
I distinctly remember the other one, like because so. I think I've told this story on our podcast before, but like when my when my parents got divorced, like my custody was that I got to see my dad every other weekend. Okay, but as I got older, Quantum Leap was on, and we both really liked it because we had been watching like replays of it on like Friday nights or something like that. And it started out, it was on Friday nights.
It moved all over the place.
And then they moved it to Wednesdays. And when they moved it to Wednesdays, my mom and dad came to an agreement where I would go to my dad's house. We would go eat Chili's every time, chicken tenders every time. We would try to drink more soda than the other one. So we would drink like 15 to 20 like Cokes. Then we would go home and watch Quantum
It all
Leap.
makes sense now.
I know. But we would watch Quantum Leap like every week. So like I have a lot of really good memories like based on this show. Like so there was like rewatching it, there was a little bit of that, but I don't know. It was just really funny because the handheld thing, I was like, what is he holding? That doesn't look like the stupid handheld thing at all. Man,
it's weird in my memories when I look back to older episodes.
Call it what I want. You don't whisper hand link at me.
Hand link? Are you prompting him?
Yeah.
No.
Does he get mad at that?
I'm trying. He does.
Of course,
He gets mad at
What's
everything.
funny is like I am you, and I'm like, don't whisper things to me.
Can you
Tell me
imagine?
aloud.
It's America.
I'm trying to make you sound better. That's
right.
All. That's
It's
all.
the producer
America.
now.
I don't
Two
have to listen to
producers.
you at all.
That's true.
Careful, I'll call ICE.
and how's that going to go?
I'm gonna go. Yeah.
The wall starts here.
Look at Albie. Look at him.
Again, ruining
No,
Albie's
it's great.
podcast.
I'm enjoying it. I just don't know where to jump in, but I'm enjoying it. This is a great episode of TOTLP. Huh? Oh, just jump in like that.
You just got to go.
The episode, to me, my first impression is it's really good, but when you examine it, there's no good in it. It's weird. It's like it's greater than the sum of its parts because like it fails so many times in so many different ways, but there are good things, but it just doesn't work. If that makes sense.
It does. Like I'm picking up what you're saying. Like the plot is super simple. Sometimes I remember Quantum Leap.
I think it was
being,
overly simple.
Like
honestly.
sometimes Quantum Leap could be like incredibly convoluted, but like the story it wanted to tell was like A to B, and I think it failed because it was so like A to B. But it makes a lot of sense. You're like, oh, okay, I get it. The little girl is adorable. Cannot act.
You didn't think so? I wrote down great actress.
Oh,
you want to know why though? It's because when he's writing the notes down, he's picturing the 30-something-year-old that she is now.
Or maybe,
and he's like, "Oh, she's amazing."
I'm still trying to get her on the show. So
like. And look, she
39.
might be a great actress now, but like as a child, she had a very wooden delivery, and because her delivery was wooden, I think his was too. A lot of the time, there were moments like the moment where he's like hugging her and like telling her everything's gonna be okay, and leans in, gives her a kiss on the head. I was like, that comes across as awkward, not like kind.
What's got to be awkward?
Well, obviously because it's a strange little kid, but like the way he's like kind of. And like shoehorning his head in there to give her a little peck on top of the forehead. I'm just like, whoo, don't play down to her level, dude. Like you're killing it.
For me, those scenes were making me a little verklempt, the whole father-daughter thing. But at the same time, the tie issue in the episode, Sam's tie got shorter and shorter
tie?
as the episode went on. If you watch from beginning to end, it starts off a little bit above his belt, and then by the end, he's got like 3 inches of tie. And like these are like heartbreaking scenes and dramatic between him and his daughter. And this tie is just so short, you can't take it seriously.
So like, I have a hard time watching 80s and 90s television at all and taking any of it seriously. Like my friend, we were just over at my friend's house. My daughter kind of has like a bob cut and her hair's a little bit red and she's wearing glasses. And my friend Steve goes, "Holy, you look like Scully from X-Files, you know." And she's like, "Oh, thanks, that's great." I was like, "Except for her shoulder pads aren't there." You know? And like there's like these moments where like the fashion of the 80s and 90s will like take me out of a show. Like that's exactly. I was watching it. They're having like this really pivotal moment. I'm like, what is wrong with his suit? Like
so much polyester.
Why do you look so stupid right now? Like, just wear a cotton suit.
Yeah,
like, why are you shining?
The early 90s, they were like, what is the most 70s we can dress these people?
Exactly.
Like, I don't blame Jean-Pierre Durliac. I think somebody else was saying, okay, we're going to just over 70s this. because it was just polyester on top of polyester. I don't think ties were ever that wide in real life.
No, man, I've seen other fun fact about me and my dad. My dad used to, when he worked at State Farm, he used to have to wear a suit, and I would help my dad match his tie to his suit. It was kind of like this weird, father-son bonding thing we did every morning. But he had like a tie hanger in the back of his closet that just had like the abomination ties, and there were some that are like as wide as like my hand, 5-6 inches wide. I'm like, why would you wear this? He's all, it was a fashion at the time. I'm like, no, that was a wrong one.
I don't know what's better, super wide or super skinny.
Oh, super skinny, man.
Yeah, okay. With the
Definitely.
silver suit. Yeah, I think so too. Heather?
So this is completely unrelated to the tie thing, but you guys are talking about awkwardness when it comes to the tie and all those moments. But you've all seen this episode before. So coming in from the first watch, I'm like, at first, who is this girl? Because I don't know if they're related. So she's some random 12-year-old girl. And then Al comes in and he's like, do you see that girl getting naked next door? And I'm like,
oh, wow.
This is really not okay. Like, what is going on? Because, like, again, you don't know that it's his daughter for like until she's like, Dad, da, da, da. I mean, you kind of figured out, but at first you don't know.
Right.
He doesn't call.
Maybe they're just
call him
carnies.
Dad for a long
she doesn't.
time.
But like, you realize when the mom comes in and like what's going on. But for the first I don't know, at least 5 minutes of them interacting, you're like,
that's
we
gross.
don't know if it's like a circus thing or
Jamie
what.
said she was going to go quick change. And then you thought Al was watching her quick change.
Al was like, "Did you see the girl next door?"
So
and I'm like, "What? No,
I haven't seen
Take a picture
this episode.
of that. Sorry.
I haven't seen this episode since I was like his age. Mm-hmm. So, I've seen it before, but like a long time ago.
Right.
So when they're coming off a stage and stuff, I was like, that girl seems really right. And they're like, the way they're kind of interacting with each other, they seem not father-daughter. They seem like boyfriend-girlfriend.
Right.
And then like, I'm going to go change. And, did you see that girl getting undressed? I was like, this is weird.
Like, you guys are talking about ties. I'm like,
is she?
This is weird.
Is she just like? Does she just look really good? Is she like? She's like 19, but she looks 14.
Oh, you better edit that.
No, that's a thing that's staying in. That's staying in.
We'll have to edit that out.
There's got to be like 2 versions of the show.
That's got to stay in. You can't edit that out.
For the unedited version, go to the TOTLB website.
You should do like a special
for our patrons.
Yeah,
I never even thought about that. That's
I
horrible.
actually didn't think about that.
I had the same
either.
moment. I 100% feel you on that.
I was very glad when the other woman walked in because I was like, oh.
Well, no, and then I was even more confused. I was like, I genuinely was like, is he cheating on her with that lady? Like, what's going on right now?
That was a totally unnecessary part of the show. Totally
absolutely.
unnecessary. The girl walking in and just getting
what was that
jumping
about?
on it makes no sense.
It's
not
it's zero purpose.
Yeah.
Just to make Al a horn dog.
Indicator
That's it.
Yeah. Well, no, it's also the indicator that he still loves his wife.
Oh,
because she's like, you're thinking about her, and you're like, he's thinking about the girl in the other room.
Even Al's like nobody knows what's going. Even Sam is like, I don't know what's wrong. Like, who is she? It's just weird.
He's all, go for it. I was like, that seems real rapey.
Al did not read up on what was going on before he got there. Like, he doesn't know.
Has Sam ever gone for it and said, Al, just watch? No, it doesn't happen.
No.
But Al
because
keeps insisting.
It's like Christian Coalition, like 90s, like network television.
Mm-hmm.
Like, they never could have gotten away with that back then.
I don't know. Al gets away with a lot of things
Not
in this
stuff
series.
he wouldn't now.
He says stuff.
But he doesn't do it.
But
Is he cheating on Tina? That's what I want to know. What were they talking about?
Which
He said
time?
it's been a while.
It's been a while, and it's like 2 weeks, and he said you shouldn't have to go for 2 weeks. So it's like he's sleeping with somebody when Tina's away?
Probably. He's on his like eighth wife.
Eighth daughter or wife. You're thinking about the 12-year-old.
Wow, no,
Jamie
I'm sorry.
Spontini.
I almost went spoiler effect. I forgot that she hasn't watched yet. So.
Oh, okay, yeah.
He mentions a third wife in the episode at least.
Yeah, I think
but
four,
throughout
right?
the season, he's always
Fifth?
talking about this. Yeah,
I
he's
think
always
fifth.
talking about my lawyer for this wife and my lawyer for that wife.
Yeah,
and, all
they bleed
kinds
him
of
dry.
stuff. Yeah.
Lauren Woodland is the one that played Jamie Spontini. You might know her from another role.
You might remember me from.
Alienation. She was a little girl in Alienation, the alien girl.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so that's
The
why
TV
I think
show,
I like
right?
her so much. Yeah.
Yeah.
The TV show, not the movie.
Man, I really liked that show.
It was a good show. It was a really
pretty
good show, yeah. Alienation, Heather?
No.
No.
The movie's kind of garbage.
Yeah,
they
but
drink
you got-
sour milk to get drunk. It's
Yeah.
super weird.
I tried it. It does not work. It does not work.
It's the Jenkum of the 80s.
You should have seen the aspirin he was taking earlier. It looked like total coke.
It's like BC headache powder. It's not. It's a thing. It's a packet of little powders that you like crushed up headache.
He had it in a paper roll and just. So wait a minute, what just happened?
He's all, man, I love this aspirin.
Juan was like, "Do you have to do that in front of everybody? Can you go to the bathroom like everybody else?"
Gotta go take.
You guys want some of this aspirin?
Yeah.
Bailey's taken that a few times. That's why I know what it is. But yeah, it does look a lot like Coke.
That's my son. That's my son.
How do you know what
Ashton.
Coke looks like?
Because it's not 90s Christian coalition anymore.
I've
like
watched
TV
Miami
has all
Vice.
sorts of crazy
Look at
crap.
Gabe. That's why.
Oh, that's why. Whoa.
Yeah, because clearly I do a lot of coke.
Yeah.
No, not because you do a lot of
Look
coke.
at the size of me.
But you're always wired. Oh.
Oh, that's ADD. That's different.
Do you want to start, Heather, with your mental notes?
Okay.
She's like, wait a minute, that's not how this episode's going.
Well, so I said earlier that I wasn't really a huge fan of this episode, and I have a lot of problems with this episode. The plot line to me, like, I don't know. So I personally don't think either one of these parents deserve this kid because 12-year-old Jamie is taking care of her father, number one. Number two, like, she's like, and then Dad, we're going to do this, and I'm going to teach you how to do this death table, and these are all the things I'm doing for you. And, like, at no point does the father act like a father at all in this episode, like, ever.
You mean
Now, I'm not
Sam,
saying-
though, right?
Yeah, yes, but which I understand, but she's so she's already comfortable in her role. It's not like if that wasn't already a thing, she wouldn't already be like, and this is what we're doing, and this is what we're doing next, and what's going on with you. It's this time all over again. Was it San Francisco all over again, or whatever she said? So it's not like, I mean, Sam, complete stranger, she's not even thinking it's that weird. It's happened before already. Which I understand, like, his wife left. It's been 3 years. He's had to do a single parent thing. Like, I get that. But I also am watching a 12-year-old take care of their father. Whether it's Sam or not, she's comfortable in that role. So there's one thing.
I think that's part of what gave birth to my confusion of their relationship, too.
Right.
Is she comes across as, like, his manager girlfriend, not his daughter.
Right,
Like,
absolutely. The second thing, the mom comes back after 3 years. I don't care what is going on in your life. You don't show up for 3 years in your kid's life. I don't think a judge should ever give you custody of your kid, especially just like when you walk right through the door. Hey, I just want my kid back.
Cool.
What?
Done.
So like that whole thing weirds me out because I don't even have an opinion on who should have had the kid. Because, like, the mom seems like she's got her stuff together a little bit more than he does as far as, like, stability. And she wants, you know, stability for her daughter and this and that. She wanted to get her life together. And he's just kind of like, I'm a magician. Like, he, you know, like, and I get that it's Sam. But, again, everybody was not shocked. Like, nobody was shocked that this is where he is in life. So,
Right.
again, it's not, like, just because it's Sam. Now, the lawyer boyfriend is so stereotypical of like step-parent thing, which is odd because putting a bad stereotype on step-parents, I don't know why that was ever a thing on television, because that shouldn't be a thing. Like, you shouldn't make someone who wants to better anyone's life an evil person. So that was another weird character thing that was going on, and then at the end, they just got back together. And I was like,
it was
so
the kiss.
after all the, so your wife leaves you for 3 years. I don't care if you're still in love with her. You're not just like, all right, perfect, happy family, let's do this.
No, you definitely bring up, like, couples
Hey,
therapy.
but
Like,
hey, we need
immediately.
right. Like, hey, so you left for 3 years.
For
like,
3 years.
But you're looking at it through the scope of the guy and not Sam, who's just trying to put him back. I think that's what the end scene is, right? Like where Al goes,
He's trying
it's
to change
not in the cards,
future.
and he's like, F that, and
Watch
that's
this.
what, yeah.
Right, but I'm just saying as like a whole plot, like there's so many things that I find wrong with like how the story went. Like I understand like the custody thing and that those are situations that are complicated but like I just had so many, like I was confused as to why neither parent looks like they should have that child. Like somebody needs to get involved and figure that shit out.
CPS is getting
somebody, like I get that you're going to be a great big happy family again, but like also, I don't know, like it just doesn't. The whole thing seemed just way too forced. Like the whole storyline to me just seemed forced and didn't seem realistic in any way at all. Where why, if the mom came back after 3 years and cared, why was she leaving him with someone who she thought was irresponsible for her daughter, who is a teenager? It's not like she was a baby. It's not like she was a kid who wasn't going to remember. This is a capable child who could have been enrolled in school while you went back to school, who, and I get that I'm a mom, and so I'm more passionate about someone leaving their child for 3 years, but it just doesn't make sense to me that was the plot device, that she left for 3 years, didn't say anything, but now she thinks the dad is irresponsible, which he is, but I don't know.
But there's so many better solutions than I abandon my family.
Right.
Like,
And she said she had to. She had no choice. And why? Because she had to get her real estate license.
Yeah, like that's not going to take up your entire day for 3 years.
I called
that's like
Baron's
6 months.
face on that. BS.
Like that takes like. How long have you been waiting for that?
Wow, he just fucking.
It's 38 episodes.
I call Baron's space on that.
No, but it's just
I think different shows.
I think this is the first time in the history of us watching Quantum Leap that this isn't a Tommy Thompson episode. This isn't a Deborah Pratt episode. This isn't a Donald P. Bellisario episode. This isn't a Chris Rubenthal episode.
Wait, isn't it a Chris Rubenthal
No,
episode?
this was written by two different people.
Oh, it was directed. He's in the credits.
He's as a producer.
Oh, is he?
Yeah, you can read it.
No, I believe you. I just remembered seeing his name. That's why I was. Oh yeah, these
Paper
two people.
rustling, NPR. Today on Quantum Leap Podcast, we have a lot of good guests coming up today, and we have the magician.
Continue what you were saying.
What was I saying? Where am I?
You were saying it's not a Chris
written
Rubenthal.
by like the solid writers.
It's not written by Chris Rubenthal, and it's written by two other people. It's written by
two women, which.
Hold on, yeah.
Which is even more crazy.
Christy Dawson and Beverly Bridges.
Here's
I had
the
never
problem.
seen them before.
Here's the problem. I think the story led to the death table thing. That was the only reason that the story existed.
That was added on. It was like a small B plot just to give the ending some jeopardy, and there was no jeopardy because you're not going to kill a 12-year-old kid.
Right.
Yeah.
Now, when I remember this episode, I thought she died the first time I watched it, but I was wrong.
You were making it more interesting.
That didn't need to be there.
I don't remember of any kids dying in Quantum Leap.
It was poor writing, is what I'm saying.
One
Poor
thing
writing.
to think about culturally is two women writing this episode. They're trying really hard, I think, in a lot of ways, to probably like break through a lot of the stereotypes of, you know, a woman asserting herself, saying, "I won't live like this anymore. I'm going to do my own thing and solve my own problems." And sometimes when you're trying to like make that point as a writer, you take it like way too far.
But,
and
like, take your
I
kid with
walk
you.
out on my whole family for 3 years
No.
is that step. They're
No.
trying to make like this huge exaggerated point to like make a much smaller point, and it just it misfires. Like it's so like the plot is strange. Like I said, it's so A to B that they had nowhere to go in there to like tell like a halfway decent story. Like you said, the kid on the death table is just there so they can have the Quantum Leap car chase scene.
Right.
Like I
At
mean,
the end.
which is
To
like
add
in
the
every
jeopardy.
episode, it just.
But this one was like a sad attempt at one. Like it wasn't. You weren't like, wow, I don't know how this is going to end.
You're like, oh, he's absolutely going to save that little kid's life.
I think the story was written.
This is like 1980, whatever, and they're definitely not going to kill a child on TV.
Right.
I think it was written without that at the beginning, and then they got to the end of the episode, and they're like,
nothing happens.
Nothing happens. Yeah, which is okay now. In television now, if you did that, that'd be great.
No way.
Sometimes.
What show would you watch like that?
That was horrible storyline.
You think so?
Yeah.
Okay.
What show would you watch?
Well, I was thinking like
element of excitement at all.
Yeah,
that's a good point.
Because usually when
the TV is not formulaic now, is what I'm saying.
Take the kid death scene out.
Okay, take the death. I might.
What happens?
It goes straight.
Not much.
It doesn't peak.
Not much.
They go to court. Like they have like a super corny court scene that's not even like a courthouse scene. They're like randomly in the judge's office. Like,
there's a guard drinking water in the fountain.
Out of the fountain.
Yeah. And when they run out of the court and the judge says stop,
nothing happened.
That's why the guy was drinking from the water fountain, is because he didn't see it.
Juan noticed the water fountain the first 3 times. It took me to the 4th.
I was like, why is there a random water fountain in the middle of this courtroom? It doesn't make any sense. It's weird.
I don't.
Oh, I didn't even think about that. Why would there be a water
it's just like
fountain
it doesn't
in
make
there?
any sense.
Wow, California's weird.
TV courtrooms are always in the hallway, right? So they give people a chance to talk.
Yeah.
Not right there.
The storyline of it is weak.
Is it bad for us to harp on the writing, or is it just?
Well, every episode, like I'm usually now. Little known fact about me, I am like so pro I'm like, but you know what? It was okay. Like I'm so much like that when I see a movie and I'm like, it wasn't great, but you know what? These are the good things about it. Like I was trying to find like something positive. Like this episode, I feel so bad because most of what do I normally say? This one wasn't my favorite. It's usually like the worst thing I'll say about a Quantum Leap episode. And I think someone even called me out once. It was like, do you have a favorite episode? Because there's a lot of them that aren't your favorite. But like this one goes so much lower than not my favorite. Like it's just, and that's the first time that's happened to me where I've just been like, nothing about this episode is good. And I didn't even dislike the acting as much. To me, I just felt weird watching it the whole time. Like, it just didn't feel like a normal quantum... Like, I expected more, I think, from this one.
It's like watching Mommy and Daddy fight. It's not enjoyable. It's not entertainment.
It was over, like that.
It was very fast.
It was very quick.
Because it doesn't... In a normal episode, there's a lot more peaks and valleys. Mm-hmm. And like you said earlier, there was nothing.
Just a straight line.
It was a straight line until the bed scene, and then it ended again.
So that's why I liked the kid peril so much. I was like, oh, cool, something's happening.
Maybe she'll die.
Because you knew nothing bad was going to happen.
I hope she dies. I hope she dies.
There was a little part of me that was like, yeah, the kid's going to die. Nah, man.
I thought the acting was good. I really did. I thought Eric Anderson, who plays the boyfriend, the lawyer, I thought he was really good at making you hate him. I hated him the whole time.
So that, I think... Of all the...
Who doesn't hate skeevy lawyers?
Yeah, but of all the cast, he's the one that is the only one that's trying to sell it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he definitely did well in his role.
He does that. But the mom is, like, not believable.
You didn't like her?
About the kid.
Oh, well, about the kid. No, she didn't care about the kid.
The kid
not at
doesn't
all.
come across as, like... a child. She comes across as like a weird little like pseudo adult.
She had to grow up early, which happens.
Which makes sense. Like, I mean, so when I was younger, my mom was a single mom, and I had 2 younger brothers, and like I was taking care of all of them. Like my brothers to this day are still like, yeah, but you take care of everyone. Like since I was little, so like I relate to that. I can understand, but it's still not okay. Like
I had to think about which one of us is on which channel there for a second.
It doesn't matter.
I 100% understand that. My oldest daughter is exactly that way, and like I grew up effectively by myself. Like, but like she comes across not even as like a child moving into that role, but as like just an adult that's short. Like and then the dad who's not the dad, it's Sam. Like he just. I remember him being more impassioned in the episodes when I was watching it as a kid. And, like, this just comes across as just so, like, paint by numbers, read the script. It doesn't, there's, like, just no pathos behind it at all. Like I'm like, well, I mean, he's trying to like save this little kid from, you know, being by herself or like being in an unhappy situation. Like she's not even in a bad situation. Right. Like I feel like as a father, if like, I mean, my ex-wife didn't disappear for like 3 years, but if she was like, hey, we've got this really nice house, like, you know, we can get them into a really nice school, we still want to share custody with you, but they should stay here. I mean, my kids do stay with my ex-wife, you know, half of the time, and they go to school in her school district. So like, you know, there's compromise there. You're not just like, I mean, he's in a trailer, like that's not even parked in a parking lot. He's parked on the side of the road.
We're like,
man.
what cop doesn't tow this damn trailer away? It's like, just chilling on the highway.
Like they would park there and like immediately hear whoop whoop. Like I mean, like, just like immediately.
Maybe not back then. I don't know.
No, I think so.
I think it was.
What are you doing with
Los Angeles?
What are you doing with this little child over here, sir?
Like, why are you in a trailer with a kid on the side of the road in a swimsuit? Like definitely pizza.
Well, it was directed by. Oh man,
sorry.
It didn't have very many windows.
It was directed by James Whitmer Jr. and he also directed the Rockford Files. So I don't know if you've ever seen that
show.
Right? And there's always that trailer sitting in there.
Yeah.
So I think that shot was maybe an homage to that.
I could see that. That's
So.
hilarious. God, Rockford Files is great.
Rockford Files?
No.
Do yourself a favor. Watch some of the Rockford Files.
It's really awesome.
It's probably one of the best, like, private detective, like, kind of noir-y TV shows that came out in the 70s and 80s. That show
it's not that I don't want to. It's just that I'm 28.
And you're forced to watch Quantum Leap.
Well, no, it's not, it's not that, like, I mean, my mom...
To be fair, we've watched 2 episodes in a year, so...
Yeah, it's not that...
I mean, I used to watch more, but it's just life. But, like, it's not that I don't want to watch all these things. It's just, like, I have a lot more to catch up on because I started later. Like that's a running gag with us. He'll be like, do you know so-and-so? And I'm like, no.
Rockford Files was a show my grandparents made me watch.
Right.
Like, I was really young, but I rewatched it.
That was a long time ago.
The guy that's in it is famous.
He died.
Yeah.
That guy.
I wish I could remember.
That one guy.
He did.
Insert name here.
Insert name here.
Rest in peace.
Michael Kirk.
Michael Kirk Memorial Hotline.
What's the number for that?
If you would like to call the Michael Kirk Memorial Hotline, like I'm inadvertently doing right now, you can dial 970-573-6148.
I was right.
Said.
Get some.
Very good. Get some.
Whammy.
Where'd you get that from? Whammy.
People are like, "What? Why am I calling this phone number?"
No, just call it. It's hilarious. Have you called it?
Did I?
I don't think so.
I think I did once.
Albie.
Twice. It hung up on me. No, I did.
It hung up on me.
No, like 3 minutes later, so I had to call back.
I sent you that text message.
It
It must not have gone through.
I called about Firefly, remember? I did.
I sent you a text
when
and
his
an email.
voice goes up
crazy.
at the end and it's a lie.
I sent you that email. Did I get the check?
Your inconsistencies in your voice.
You got a lot of notes in front of you, sir.
I do. I don't have a brain or memory. I thought Amy Steele was really good. She played Maggie. I thought she was a good actress in this.
That's the mom?
Yes, because
you're wrong.
I could be wrong. You're wrong. But I really felt the tension of between her and the magician that Sam was in.
Nah.
Like they were supposed to be together,
sense.
but they weren't together. Like you didn't feel that tension?
No, they felt like strangers.
Really?
They absolutely. I 100% agree with her.
So I was just reading into that.
When she comes in and like bursts in, and that chick's sitting on his lap, and she's like, "What's going on here?" Like she has that like look on her face. It's like like, you know, once you figure out that she's been gone for 3 years, like, how dare you judge what this dude is doing? Like,
that's true. 3 years.
But then, like, when they're interacting with each other, you know, he's supposed to love her, and he knows that she loves him back, and they are just so, hello, how are you?
Even those moments before the kissing.
Yes.
Really? You didn't sense
and
that?
the kissing is so, like...
hot, right? No,
smoosh
really?
Face. Smoosh face.
I thought it was so hot.
It looks so...
That sounded like something completely different.
Your porn cache must be weird. I think that's hot, man. Like that
awkward kissing, nude, XXX. Like that final kiss
totally
though, where he just grabs her.
And look up awkward kissing.
Awkward kissing. It's on there. What rule is that?
It's got to be on there.
Rule number what?
47.
That's it.
Yeah.
But like
porn for everything.
Even with Al going, oh, it's not in the cards, and then they have that kiss, and it's like, oh, and they're back together. Like, that, I don't...
And it's telegraphed. Like, he telegraphs it so hard. Oh, they're never going to get back together. Yeah, they are, because he's going to go over there and kiss her, and it's stupid. Like,
to be fair, sometimes at the end of episodes, you don't always get the best results.
Oh, no, I know that. Like I said, I watched a lot of this as a kid. I remember there were episodes where there wasn't a happy ending. I feel like this should have been one of those episodes. Like,
it was okay for them to just share custody and not be together.
That would have been more realistic.
Yeah.
And would have.
Yeah, I like that ending.
It would have spoken more intensely to her being an independent woman too.
Right.
She doesn't need him. She just wants to co-parent with him. Like, that's perfectly fine.
But then she finds a magic shop for him, and
Maggie found the
Maggie finds the magic shop for him. Because
and starts it for him
because he can't take care of himself.
He's a guy. He is a guy.
He is kind of a man-child. Hey, no. Don't do that. I hate that.
Okay, I won't do that.
Guys are super capable of doing whatever they want. Like, some dudes are like super immature and like can't handle their lives or like need help. Like, a partnership of people working together is like a partnership. Like, when people say, oh, he's a guy, he's just stupid. He doesn't know how to take care of his kids. He doesn't know how to do this because he's a guy. That's idiotic.
We're all capable.
You just didn't get taught how to do that because you grew up, like, if you're from my generation or your generation, you grew up, like, the first time my dad saw me changing a diaper, he was like, what the hell are you doing? I'm like, I'm changing the diaper. Why? Because my daughter... And he's all, oh, I never changed your diaper. I was like, well... then you sucked as a dad. No wonder you guys got divorced. Like,
you ever get those under the breath, like, oh, he didn't come out with mom? You know what I mean? How's he doing it? Like, what do you mean? Like, exactly. I'm the parent just as much as the other person.
That's one of my huge pet peeves. Like, on the TV, the commercial where the dad is just the dumb dad that doesn't know how to take care of the kids. Like, these guys survived. Like, half the time I had them by myself, and they're just fine.
This should have been a video podcast.
As he chows down on a friggin' bag of
pasta.
Cold spaghetti with nothing on it from a Ziploc
I don't even
bag.
know where that came from. When was the last time we had spaghetti? 3 nights ago?
Maybe.
It's a vegan meal. Sorry, I had to.
Well, that brings up a great line that I think
You're
was in this
breathing
episode.
cow, by the way.
I don't know what that means.
They are currently inhaling cow.
We
These
are.
two vegans
It smells
are
like poop around
sucking
here a
in
little
dead
bit.
cow as we speak. Don't barf.
I don't know what that...
They're vegans. It's funny to me.
know, yeah.
I'm a cook, so I make fun of vegans.
I was a cook for 23 years.
I know.
Yeah, it's pretty awesome.
How?
How?
Because crazy people are
'Cause he
cooks for a
cooked it
long
and
ass
he didn't
time.
eat
Because they paid me to listen to music and dance and then cook here and there and eat food.
Smoke weed and drink.
Exactly, in the cooler.
I mean, I don't
No.
work off at work constantly.
Never.
God,
I didn't take naps in the walk-in.
swears. I can't not do it.
It's okay. There's a lot of handling sounds going on.
I have literally had to restructure the way I talk for the podcast. Like, there's now a thing because there's a microphone in my face. I think about the words. Like, I say stuff instead of, but normally not.
The pop filter doesn't look enough like my grandmother for me to curtail my swearing.
It doesn't filter your swearing as it goes through.
It doesn't go, mihong. Or,
what?
Yeah. It doesn't have a sandal that it throws at my head. Ow, God, hurts so much. How does a flip-flop hurt so much?
The thing is, we don't have to think when we podcast.
I know,
we just talk.
We just talk. Enjoy.
We just did a whole sex episode.
And it was hilarious.
Episode 69. I was supposed to be there.
69, dude.
I might be there in 70.
Well,
We're trying to figure that out.
You guys should
He
stay till
usually
Sunday.
sits across from me,
Yes.
so I get judgment looks, and then he'll be like, "Re-say that."
Well, no,
So that after a while, you just like, all right, fine, I won't curse.
She doesn't get judgment
Yeah,
looks.
it's fine.
No
We get
judgment,
high
just
fives.
swears.
Yeah. Well,
I also don't think I would even at this point. I don't think I would
care. Yeah. It's okay.
Like, notice I don't have any notes either. Like,
Drinking a beer.
yeah,
that's how we rule when TOTLB's here.
That's how we
Well,
roll.
that's you drink beers. I
need a
smoke
beer.
dope.
You're drinking a beer right
Well,
now.
right now, because he was kind enough to offer. I hardly ever drink.
You want him
for
to
the
offer
record.
you some of his Coke?
No, I don't.
It's headache powder.
I feel like the last thing I ever need to do is any kind of upper. Just like,
you have a bum knee, bro. You ain't going nowhere.
I just fall over. Try to run around, just hurt myself.
Like, all the thoughts in my head, and there's nothing I can do.
Hashtag Meals on Wheels, baby.
That was so funny.
I think that brings up a great line that in this episode, it was poorly written, but there was a couple good lines, and I think one of them was where Sam says, right now, they don't, the law doesn't view fathers as equal or good parents.
Yes.
But one day they will. So that was nice.
Having gone through custody stuff, watching that, all I can think to myself is, they knew that back then, why haven't they fixed it?
Mm-hmm.
Because, even when I was going through my custody stuff, there was so much, well, is he fit to have the children? I was like, I've been raising them.
Mm-hmm.
Are you kidding me? They live at my house. Of course I'm fit. I feed them. They go to school. Sophia only ran away from home in the snowstorm one time.
That's not so bad.
I feel like that has to happen, though. I feel like that's going to happen with my kids. I'm running away. All right, see you later.
See ya. This was different. There was a massive snowstorm, and I had to go pick up the two older kids from school, and she just left.
She walked through the window. Yeah. She never walked out of her room because it was locked. She went through the window.
She was like Al. She just walked right through it.
And she was 2.5, 3 years old.
Oh, really?
Ren has been.
It was nightmarish.
Ren has packed her bags and been
dude,
I'm leaving, and we're like,
every kid did that.
I stopped
right?
her from running away. I said, you can't run away. She said, why? I said, you're not old enough yet. She said, oh, and she put down her stuff and walked away.
That's genius.
Yeah, it worked. I don't know how long it'll work, but it
would
worked.
have flipped me off and walked out the door.
I said, you're not old enough yet.
I mean, she was 4, but
Ashton would have flipped me off and walked out the door at 4.
We're lucky that some of those things still work.
Okay, other good parts of this episode.
Okay, so other good lines. Mm-hmm. So my dad is a catchphrase dude. When my dad hears a catchphrase that is hilarious, he says it over and over and over and over until it completely stops being hilarious. The catchphrase in this that my dad said for months, smooth move, X-Lax. As soon as she said that, I was like, my dad. Because my dad would tell me that every time I did anything remotely clumsy.
That was a very popular saying back then.
There was some, she says something else at the very end. This is probably the one note I should have written down. She says something about the guy being a butthead, take off butthead or something like that. And then my dad thought that was hilarious too. But there's moments of funny dialogue. There's moments where they seem connected, but for the most part, it just seems like people pretending like they're connected. Every once in a while, when I'm super super stoned, I can tell when people are acting. And this was definitely one of those moments where I was very cognizant that it was people pretending to be in a situation.
See, I wasn't high, so I didn't have that insight.
Oh, no, it's just a weird thing that happens to me sometimes. And it doesn't happen very often. What it happens to me the most on is wrestling. When they're doing promos, I was oh, they're pretending. Yeah. But in general, the episode is just so A to B. It just doesn't do anything.
Well, I think that's where it failed, the writing. So I think even the actors in this episode, they tried to do the best, but they knew it was crap. And they were trying to do their best.
But I feel like they weren't even trying to do their best.
Yeah, I had the feeling like they were just trying to get through it to get on to the next one. So maybe the next one was good.
I feel is the textbook definition of it got phoned in.
Yeah, I would agree with you.
Where they were just oh, okay, we're doing this one now.
I can't think of another Quantum Leap episode so far that was like this. Usually they have me crying and everything. I was, this one I didn't cry. I was verklempt a little bit when the dad and the daughter embraced because I have such a good relationship with my daughter and... Anytime I see a dad and daughter or anything, it could be a commercial.
I cried at Trolls, and this didn't do anything to
really?
me. Yeah.
That's because your daughter was going to prom. So.
Well, yeah, there was some extenuating circumstances for Trolls, but
Trolls is a good movie.
The movie? I love it.
Yeah, dude. Justin Timberlake starts singing True Colors, and they all turn back into color. Waterworks, dude. Yeah. I was dying.
That and Moana, I'm like...
Oh, yeah.
Mess watching
when the grandma's Stingray comes over and oh, I'm out.
No.
Mess. I'm a mess.
Those two movies.
No, it's I know it's everything. I know.
Toy Story.
Toy Story, especially Toy Story, like the one where he has to give his toys away.
Toy Story is meant to crush your heart.
Yeah.
Like that is. So
the toys are about to get lit on fire.
I have this problem when I see like a stuffed animal that falls out of the car and gets abandoned. It for some reason it destroys me. Toy Story is just 3 movies of that, where I'm just like, and then the toys were by themselves, and the little kids don't have the toys.
I think Toy Story affects us all. I can't not.
You have no
include
heart. You have no heart if you are at least like, wow, that was emotional. Like, you are a robot if you don't have emotions.
I don't remember the last time I cried, but it's tough watching. I'm telling you, and then especially watching it with people like Alicia. I'd never seen Toy Story 3 before ever, and they're about to get incinerated, and she's bawling.
Oh, I was in the theater.
I don't know what to do.
I was in the movie theater, ugly crying. Like it was amazing.
When Andy
that fat guy's crying behind me.
Like,
yeah.
And that music plays.
Well, and like I was a kid when the first Toy Story came out, so like I was Andy's age, and like it was like they're making another one, and I'm like, I don't know if I'm ready for that.
You're
like emotionally, I don't know.
Looking at your mom, like, are you going to give my toys away?
Well, I was also like the kid when I was younger. I was like the kid who had a ton of stuffed animals, but I would like, okay, you 3 can sleep in my bed tonight, and then I'd rotate to like make sure that none of my stuffed animals felt alone. Like I didn't want any of them to feel left out. So I had to like rotate which stuffed animals like I played with, and
I don't do that. I just pile them all into one under a blanket, put the blanket next to me, and then have a separate blanket.
There you go.
Because I can't have them all on my side, or I just overheat.
Actually, not a special guest.
Oh yeah, he's going to get credit in the episode for sure.
Sweet. No, too late.
Too late.
It just decided.
Yes. You're always welcome.
There's also a picture of you eating out of a bag of spaghetti.
That'll be the cover art for iTunes.
Oh, absolutely.
People will be like, what is this?
A very special, and we mean special.
Who is that kid eating spaghetti out of a bag?
Someone should get him real food.
I feel like we're an hour in and people still don't know who we are anyways, so.
It doesn't matter.
Juan, Gabe, tell people about yourselves.
So I'm Gabe. This is Juan, co-host of Thinking Outside the Long Box podcast.
John's around.
I'm John.
Wow, that is you.
Yeah,
I thought that was John.
It's just me. There's
His
no
pants
John.
fell
There's
off
no
all of
John?
a sudden.
There's actually no John. It's just me making a funny voice.
We can't uncredit John though. Won't
So it
let
was
us
you that
live
sent
it
me
down.
those comics. Thank you so much.
So we do Thinking Outside the Long Box podcast. We are
the longest episodic show on Barren Space, by the way.
Oh God, yeah, we have long episodes.
Well, and the most episodes.
Long,
We surpassed them a long time ago.
You are our flagship. You kept going when everybody else
We're Monday
didn't.
Night Raw, damn it.
Are we really?
Yes.
I didn't
They're
know that about us.
SmackDown. They might be Sunday Night Heat, actually.
or main event. Their main event.
Yeah, that's more like it.
Rusev.
Saturday night's main event twice a year. People tune in to Saturday Night Live and go, "What is this?" Yeah, that's us.
So here's the thing about Barren Space. Like, I know that we're on the Barren Space thing. I have listened to at least
Barren
an
Space
episode
Network.
or two of like every show that's on Barren Space, but like I have no idea what's going on. Like, I just show up for our podcast.
11/22/63 just finished not too long ago.
What else? We have
Frequency, but that got canceled, didn't it?
The show actually got canceled, yes. But we
Yeah,
have
so-
like 4 episodes in the can that need
Right.
to be edited and upped.
Nice.
And then now we've got the Roddy McDowell, not yesterday's podcast.
Not
or
just
something.
yesterday with Zoe Dean. Came aboard just recently.
So Planet of the Apes. The only thing I knew him from was Planet of the Apes.
Yeah, me too. I'm totally guilty of that. And one episode of Quantum
But that's
Leap,
okay.
right?
Like, that's the point. You probably don't know like half the shit we talk about because
but I laugh.
stuff she was talking about.
Why are you all looking at me?
I'm not.
I'm looking at
I know, like every he keeps looking at me like I'm gonna react.
Oh man, we do this to every show we're on.
Hey, we're an hour in. That was pretty good. Usually it's about 10 minutes.
10? How dare you, sir? 5.
You still didn't explain what we do or who we are.
We do a pop culture podcast. We talk largely about comic books, comic book based television movies, things like that. Like the genesis of it had to do with Juan and I both like knowing each other from a comic book shop, collecting comic books, and loving that sort of stuff. We talk about, I mean, everything that you guys are watching, like all the Marvel movies and TV shows, the terrible DC movies, like, and just kind of, it's gotten to the point where we just talk about whatever interesting pop culture tidbits we want to talk about. And sex.
Tons and tons of interviews.
Yeah, we do a lot of interviews.
The last episode had how many?
12.
That's ridiculous. I thought 4 was crazy.
And you know, what's cool though is it like gives us a chance to talk to people like, you know, you look at a guy like Jim Shooter, like he was the managing editor of Marvel. Like he started at DC and became the editor at Marvel, has literally seen the ins and outs of the business since like the 50s. And to be able to sit down and talk with a guy like that for like 15 minutes, like people don't understand that like those guys are going away. Like they're slowly dying. Like Lin Wein died last week, you know, and that's like a killer because I would have loved to have talked to him. But, you know, we're trying to jump on to those people and find out what was it like? What was life like? You know, where were you going with this? All of those things, you know, are important. And then on top of it, we get to talk to a lot of like new and independent comic book writers and artists, people that are starting their own thing for the first time. And it's just like, it's an amazingly fun thing. And obviously it's captured my attention for 3 years. So it's pretty good cure from my ADD, I guess.
We have an old segment. That's kind of why, you know,
our pop culture classic. I'm super stoked. So one of our Patreon levels, which you can find out about at www.patreon.com/TOTLB. One of our Patreon levels, you can determine once a quarter what our pop culture classic is. So my friend Doyle tells me that his methodology behind picking the movie is how can I torture at least 100 and 150 people for like 2 hours. So like this episode is his first pick because you know we deferred it one episode for the sex episode because we wanted to watch Orgasmo, or I wanted to watch Orgasmo.
Great movie.
Juan hated it. It's
he didn't
amazing.
like it?
No, he doesn't think things are funny. But yeah, so we get to watch Over the Top.
Oh, that's Sylvester Stallone arm wrestling, right?
The arm wrestling trucker movie. Yeah.
Yes. Oh, where the arm breaks in that movie?
Yes.
Oh, man.
What, Dan, I think is funny?
Anything.
He said anything. You don't think anything's funny?
I think a lot of things are funny. I don't like Orgasmo. Trey Parker is horrible.
Really?
I don't think he's funny.
That.
I don't think he's funny
I like
at all.
anything they do. Trey Parker, Matt Stone. Cannibal the Musical.
It's just
I
dumb.
hated that.
You didn't like that?
Side note, he's our resident angry, grumpy bastard. Like, he's the one who's angry at everything.
Absolutely everything.
All I know is I laugh my ass off every time I listen.
For the record,
the thing is, I'm known for the one who loves everything. That's me on the show.
I feel like I've softened my stance a little bit because like I've gotten to the point where like we've watched so much stuff and not all of it is stuff that I've liked. And read so much stuff that I don't necessarily like, but I can look at a movie like I can look at this episode of Quantum Leap and say, look, the acting's not great, the writing's not great, but hey, I've never made a television episode like they did that. They made that happen.
The list of the episodes I could never accomplish.
Exactly. Like it's still
so you got to give them that.
And it's still it's still a big deal. They made an hour-long television
and it's a
episode.
part of a series that I absolutely love to do. I love Quantum Leap. That's the whole reason we started.
How many total episodes of Quantum Leap are there?
Well, actually, there are 97 episodes, Gabe.
So, in the grand scheme of things, you arrogant... Trying to make me look bad. I will show you up every time.
I think Heather's enjoying this.
So, in the grand scheme of things, one bummer episode out of like 100, that's pretty good.
I can't believe they didn't make 100.
They were really
crazy.
short. I remember... Scott Bakula talking about that, just shy of 100.
That's crazy.
That would drive me nuts. Like, I'm so weird about stuff like that I'd be like, come on, just let's do a 3-episode miniseries, guys.
Well, they were hoping for like a TV movie afterward.
Right.
Didn't work out.
Yeah, I mean, this isn't the worst television I've ever watched.
Absolutely
but as like,
not,
I have high standards, I think, for Quantum Leap. But also, when there is one like this, then the next great one is going to be that much better.
Right.
Because you're like, oh, good, we're back to regular Quantum Leap.
Like, at least it's not that dumb magic.
I don't remember another episode where I literally am like, oh, that was terrible. Before we watched it, I was like, I can remember not liking this episode, but I don't remember of any other ones really.
I remember as a kid, I liked this episode because it had to do with magic, and I was always into magic, and I was putting on magic shows and everything like that. But even the magic in this episode, even though they had a magic advisor who we talked to later in the show.
You know what's funny?
What?
He's in character the one time he's on the screen. Like, you see him in the thing, and he's like he has this face that's so like magician like it's so weird.
Well, it was probably written in like that, I'm sure. I'm going to blame the writers on that. We're going to just throw the writers under the bus.
But there's not actual real magic in
the magic in it was kind of poor. I mean, they did the sawing the lady in half.
But Sam doesn't know that I can say, like, it shouldn't have been good.
That's a good point.
Right.
Like, it shouldn't have been, like, Sam shouldn't have been like, let me leap in and know exactly. Because sometimes that happens, and I'm like,
he does
you don't
know how to pick a lock, which I found
he knows how to do a lot of things.
That was
like,
weird.
He knows how to fight. He knows language. He does know a lot of things.
Right, like, I feel like he should have known how to pick a lock, but normally he leaps in, and you're like, how come between you and Al, you know everything about everything, then you just leap in and you're like, yeah.
But what kind of magician makes it so that you have to pick like a real freaking lock when there's tons of metal steel trying to come down on you? That makes no
magician.
sense.
That it was the writers didn't realize, I don't think, about how magic works.
So why
that
have
table
a magic consultant?
I don't think they listened to him, honestly. Because
that was not a magic.
Table of Death, when you design an illusion called something of death, the first thing you do is make sure there's no way it can kill you. So the spikes would be rubber, or they would go into the top of the table or something.
To make sure you don't die.
Right, or it would never fall all the way down unless you already...
Or it's got like some kind of false
switch.
Bottom or something.
Yes,
or
there's
a switch to make it stop. Like, there's no way to make this stop. No, you're just going to die.
I thought that was weird. Like, it has no fail-safe. It's like, well, I mean, for the act, it has no fail-safe. Right. In reality, that has to have a fail-safe.
Right. Exactly.
Because I'm pretty sure that's against a buttload of state and federal laws.
I'm sure they didn't listen to Dan Birch because he would say, no, there's no way that we would get into something that would kill us.
Right.
But then what happens to the episode? There's no suspense. There's no danger. And I think me and Juan were talking about it while we were watching it. The continuity errors for the Table of Death were just ridiculous because in the beginning of the episode, the shackles were not on chains, but at the end they were on chains.
Yeah.
Well, no, like when he first
does it go back and forth,
and he can't undo the lock, he like rolls off because he's not shackled by his leg.
No. But so the first thing is the daughter showing him how it works. And it's literally stationary, and she's just picking the lock, and it opens all four. And then she locks him in, and then all of a sudden it has a chain because he can get his arm out of the way. It's really odd. It just makes no sense. Like, why can't she? If the chains are long enough, why can't she just kind of roll off?
Yeah, because she only had one arm attached, right? Like,
yeah, there's only one arm attached, and it was attached to a chain.
Sticks the pick in there and goes doot, and all of the locks open.
There's no way that happens.
Yeah,
that can't.
That's got to be a trigger. Like, that's a trigger mechanism, which is a fail-safe.
Right,
that's
like
the way that's supposed to work.
You hit it with your foot or something.
Yeah.
But it
was weird.
It was magic for people that didn't understand magic.
Well, it wasn't really magic, though. It was like...
An escape.
It
wasn't an illusion.
It was more
called an illusion.
A Houdini kind of thing, not a magic show.
And how did that go for Harry Houdini?
He did.
Right.
Well,
he did.
David Copperfield did like a Table of Death thing, something very similar. But in that, the illusion is it actually impales him. But then he's okay because he disappeared and he's back somewhere else on a motorcycle with some fog or something. But that's the illusion. In this, there's no illusion.
The Statue of Liberty.
This is just like
get that.
Exactly. We're on the Great Wall of China.
Yeah.
Yeah, like this is just like a timed like challenge. It's not. That's not. And maybe it is the whole like it was added later, so they didn't ask the magic consultant. Like maybe it was. You know what I mean? Like maybe. Because they did add it later, maybe it was just like, oh, well, let's add this thing and let's make it like this. And even maybe the magic consultant was like, yeah, but no. And they were like, but we have to do it this way because, you know.
That's not how that works. I know because I'm the best.
She's like showing him how to do it, and all of a sudden she can't get out of the freaking mechanism.
Well, she obviously built it, right?
Yeah,
so she knows how.
Because
he didn't. Because he does what's called like push button magic, where he just buys the trick and does it. Because
Right.
the sawing the lady in half is like push button.
She's a
magic.
pull my head.
Yeah, she's in control of the whole trick. Luckily, that was good. Like, I think the magic consultant had something to do with that because that's a trick that the assistant takes care of everything. So
Right.
Sam didn't have to know anything. He was just following the onstage prompts.
cues.
Yeah, the cues. So that made a lot of
She's
sense.
all, turn me around. Yeah, the guy in the front row definitely didn't hear you say that.
She said, turn me around.
Turn her around. Good God.
He did turn her around too quick.
So they turn him around at that first scene, and you look out over the crowd, and it's just a random bunch of black dudes
with big afros,
and stuff that looks like B footage from like an old
Shaft.
it was Shaft or like something like that. I was like, why? That seems like a weird
Out of place.
group of like.
What,
Where
black
are
people
they
can't like
doing
magic or what?
Okay, I watch a lot of America's Got Talent, and the way the typical black person on television reacts to magic, no, they don't watch magic. I'm not trying to be horrible, but every time David Blaine or whoever is on there and they go into like the inner city and they're doing magic for like this disenfranchised group of people, they react very poorly.
Right.
Like, and I don't know if that's just the way the television is cut to like reinforce this weird stereotype in my mind that black people hate magic. But every time I see that on TV or on the internet or ever, the reaction isn't, yay, that was a good trick. It's, you're the devil. Get off my street. Like,
that's real magic.
That is...
David Blaine probably is the devil, by the way.
He's kind of boring.
At the very least, he
crazy.
sold his soul. Like, at the very least. But, I mean, just...
It was stock footage,
when they turn
obviously,
around, I was just like, that seems like a weird place to do magic. Like, that seems like there should be a stripper pole there.
And it says magic here nightly.
Yeah.
Which makes no sense either.
Yeah, because what
for that
bar
crowd
has magic nightly?
Nightly.
And it's packed.
No,
they're all there to see James.
Like 10
it's
people
not.
there.
But why would that draw in crowds? Magic night.
Why would you bother to watch?
They were
Like,
trying
that's
to
what I'm
watch
saying.
the young old lady.
Who, Jamie?
Obviously, there is another act there.
Oh,
So
yeah,
is
they
that-
have multiple acts.
So that lady that comes in, is she...
They booked them together.
A magic
Yeah,
assistant?
they were together.
I didn't think that. I thought she was like some other entertainment, and they booked both acts.
Clearly a stripper.
You think so?
Or like a singer or something,
A
and
singer,
maybe they did
a
like
lounge
a...
singer, I'm
Yeah.
guessing.
Because they were booked together for 3 weeks, I think, is what it was supposed to be.
What a bizarre episode we watched.
I told you they brought us in on the one we could on.
So there's a lot more to talk about, but why don't we go to an interview with Dan Birch? He was the magician in the mirror and the magic consultant. And he's the best.
He is the best.
He's the best.
He looked like a magician.
He's my favorite interview on this episode.
He's going to make his interview disappear.
His interview is amazing.
There are those who entertain with tricks, but Dan Birch performs magic.
Good evening. I'm Scott Bakula. Each week on Quantum Leap, I do magic. Well, TV magic, by leaping back in time into someone else's body. The gentleman you're about to meet, however, performs magic in a way I've never seen before. So please, sit back and give your undivided attention to the magic of Dan Birch.
Thank you for joining me today, Mr. Dan Birch. I'm so excited to talk with you. This episode of Quantum Leap has been one of my favorites since I was a kid, because I was always into magic. I was a magician growing up. I was in the American Society of Magic. I love the magic mixed in with Quantum Leap. It was two of my favorite things. And what I want to talk to you about is, one, how you got into magic, and also your experience with Quantum Leap and how you became the magical supervisor to that episode. So could we start off by just telling us how you got into Quantum Leap?
Yeah, it's a good question. So back, that was, what year was that? Man,
90 maybe?
Yeah, right around there, early 90s. So my sister was working at Universal Studios, and of course I was kind of just starting working cruise ships, and I was working at the castle. I was kind of new at the castle as well. So she had a friend named Deidre Pratt, who was Deborah Pratt's daughter. And Deidre had horses, and I used to ride horses, actually race horses, 10 years before all this. And she wanted to go horse riding. I guess they had a couple of horses that they needed ridden. So we went horseback riding with her on their horses, and we were talking about my magic. And I believe I played at the castle close to that time, so we invited her out, and she came out and saw the show, and they liked it quite a bit. So then when this script came up on Don Bellisario's desk, Deidre, I believe, worked in their office, because I remember she saw the script and she said, "Oh, I know the guy would be perfect for the mirror image of the magician, and as well as the magical consultant." But in any event, so they put a bug in Don's ear, and then the call came about being the technical consultant from, I believe his name was Harker Wade, one of the producers, I believe he was. And so I took that, and then we had a meeting, skipping forward to when the production began. We were in a meeting. They hadn't cast the show yet, and there was about a dozen people in there. There was the director, there was Don Bellisario, there was directors, producers, quite a few people. And when they were talking about the different roles in the episode, and then when they got to the part of the magician mirror image of Scott, who would look in the mirror and who you'd see his face, Don Bellisario said, "Oh, our technical consultant, our magician consultant looks the part. Why doesn't he just do it?" And nobody really said anything, so it was kind of like, okay. Well, at this exact moment, we're sitting at Universal Studios in this meeting room. There was also auditions for the Mirror Magician taking place, and I could see magicians walking into the audition room just outside the window where we were sitting. And he said, "Okay, you've got it." And the interesting thing about this, the reason I'm mentioning it all, is because, I've gone out on auditions, and I imagine a lot of people maybe that hear your podcast have gone out or do go out on auditions. And a lot of times we're down on ourselves as to why we didn't get it, and we think maybe we held our head wrong, or we stuttered, or this or that. And at that point, I realized how almost fickle it kind of can be, because here a decision was made that I would get that job, and you still had people auditioning, and they had no idea what took place. And I kind of felt sorry for them in a way, but it kind of opened your eyes that, hey, you might be going out on something that maybe doesn't exist, and it's has nothing to do with your fault if you don't get it. It just happened to be the way the cards fell in that situation. And it's something that I've always kind of really left a big imprint on my mind, because it was kind of sad seeing magicians go in, with their stuff and everything and hoping for the part, but it just wasn't going to happen, unfortunately. So circumstances are strange in that business, and don't ever get down on yourself if you're not getting it, unless you're sure it's you that's making mistakes, because sometimes there's some other politics. And speaking of politics, so at the end of that meeting, the director, his name was James Whitmore. I don't know if we should mention that or not, but
yeah, that's all right.
It was an interesting thing. He came up to me right after that meeting, and he said, "Listen," he said, "you still don't have the part. Don't get your hopes up. And we'll know more about that later." And it was kind of an odd situation, because here's Don Bellisario saying you've got it, and here's the director. And I think maybe what happened is maybe he's promised somebody something or something along that line. I don't know. Again, there's a lot of politics. It's unbelievable. And the passion behind it, too, for who's going to be doing the favors to get somebody in on a part. But what it really came down to, I think, was that, through the Deidre, then you have Deborah Pratt, and that's the mom, and she, I think, convinced Deborah, and I think Deborah was who convinced Dawn. And at that point, it did end up getting solidified, and I was the part. But, yeah, a lot of politics for that. Had none of that happen, had my sister not been at Universal, had Deidre not, I'm sure, talked with Deborah, and had Deborah not got to Dawn, no way. It would have never happened. And it was a real lucky shot for me.
That's
awesome. So that was pretty much how it happened.
That's awesome how that worked out. You did look the part. You looked like a magician. Was that in your normal look, or did hair and makeup make you look more like a magician?
No, that is my act. My act has very much to do with the traditional look of the magician or the real magician, the guy that can hopefully really go out and do magic. That's been the goal of the act ever since I started in, 1985, 86.
How did you get into magic?
How did I get into magic?
Yeah, being a magician. Was it like a boyhood passion, or when did it start?
At age 12, I saw a show. We went and saw Andre Cole in a magic show. I really liked that, and I recall also back in that time we went to Disneyland at the magic shop, and it just kind of grabbed me, and I'm not sure why. I think first was the magic shop, and then we saw Andre Cole, and then Dove Magic. And I remember having a Tannen's catalog, Londano's Dove production or something, that talked about a magician showing a scarf empty and producing a live dove from it. And man, it was like a magnet. I had to do that. I just thought that was the coolest thing. And, when you're young like that and way back in that day, I guess it was kind of a big thing. So I just had to do it, and it's been with me ever since.
Awesome. For me, it was Harry Blackstone Jr. I saw him, and I was actually one of the kids he pulled up on stage for the Dove Cage, I think it's called.
Oh,
and
yeah.
I was right there, and it just disappeared, and I was like mind blown at like 7 years old. And from then on, I got books from the library, ordered catalogs, and I was on my way. It was a different time back then. You didn't have the internet where you could find out anything about anything in 2 minutes. You really had to research and practice and learn and have friends. And do you think the magic is different today than it was back then?
It's very much different. Very, very much different. And I don't know how much I should get into all that, because I think some of it is degraded. I think some of it is turned too camera trickish. Mm-hmm. And I think probably back in the 80s, late 80s, where I saw it almost at its best, when you had a lot of good jobs, you had a lot of good acts, there was a lot of money involved, and they were doing honest acts. You could do a show for a live audience back then, and for the most part, that's how it was done, other than some of the camera, maybe close-up stuff. But they kept it pretty clean. And I think over the years, people got a little bit hungry for maybe performers for getting it too good to be true. And all of a sudden, it loses its integrity, it being genuine. And you can tell, when you're watching magic that's genuine versus maybe slightly altered with camera tricks, with audience stooges and all the other things they're doing. As an audience member, I think it kind of reads. And I think that we've lost a lot of that. And I just think the acts were better. When it was live and truly capable of doing for a live theater audience, I felt that the magic was better. And again, there were good jobs for us back then, but things have changed a lot.
I agree 100%. It's almost like you're watching someone act like they're a magician versus them actually being a magician.
Yeah, maybe it's the evolution of it all, but I'll stick to I do a bird act as my main act, and I find though that today, in my opinion, audiences are better than they were for me. And I think it's because somewhere they realize that, hey, this is real life. This isn't the camera stuff where, you can do anything out of anything and suddenly you think you're the greatest thing on earth. But they kind of sense it. And I think audiences are savvy. I think they're picking up on it. And I like honest magic. It's really, I guess it turns me on. It makes me tick. So some might see that as old fashioned, but I don't really care.
Before we go into the technical advising on the episode of Quantum Leap, could you tell me a little bit about the 2 mirror gags that were in the episode and how those were accomplished?
Yeah, we say how they were accomplished. I was standing next to Scott. He walked up to the mirror, and I was standing next to him, and I think that the camera just pans or something, so it's seeing him and then it's seeing me. There was no. I know I mimicked him as he made the expression, and I think it was just a panning of the camera, if I remember. It wasn't a camera edit though. They had somehow with the angles, but it seems to me I was just standing right next to him.
Awesome. Did you double at all for Scott in close-ups or anything like that?
No.
Okay, cool. Teaching Lauren Woodland, the little girl who played Jamie, what is it, coin matrix? Is that what it's called?
Are we talking about the guest star?
Yes, and she did the close-up of the 4 cards and the 4 coins, and they pulled out, and it was her actually doing it. Did you have to train her how to do that?
Oh, my goodness. It's been so long.
It has been a long time.
It's been a long time, but I would suspect the answer is yes. Because none of them really were magic-enabled people per se. So, I don't even remember that scene. That's bad, huh?
No, that's okay. That's okay. Tell me a little bit about your experience being the magic consultant. What does that consist of? And, what did you have to do? Did you, review the script and say, this works, this doesn't work? Or did you have to make up the tricks?
It's a really good question. So when I got that, I was fairly new with magic because I just started really kind of going professional. So I was still learning, and I had my act, and I was learning a lot. And back then, I was from Sacramento originally, and I was kind of just out of Sacramento, or kind of in transition of leaving Sacramento to L.A. And I had a good friend back then, and he's still in Sacramento, I believe, and his name is Milligan the Magician, Troy Milligan. He's a really, really great guy. I've missed him over the years, but I discussed it with him, and he had given me some ideas. There was a scene where he takes his coat off, and all these tricks and sponge balls and rings are flying out of it. And he had given me some of those ideas. He'd mentioned having to do something like that, and he was talking about the sponge balls and the rings flying out of it. So, yeah, I grabbed that idea because, I don't know where it would have gone if it was just up to my ingenuity at that point. And I really appreciated his tip because, I did learn we bounced ideas off each other a lot, and he certainly had better ones than me. He'd been in magic a lot longer than me. So we had a lot of good times back then. But I got to give him some of that credit. And then the other stuff, you'll see dove magic happening. You had the dove and balloon that goes off. Those are tricks that I had, of course, because I was into doves. So it always seems like that's the more natural thing for me to deal with. But it was a lot of fun. Scott was very good to work with. He came out to the castle and saw my act as well. And I don't know if you've ever seen my promo tape, but he also filmed an intro for me on it back then. I kind of seized the opportunity as best I could. But, they were very good. They learned very fast. At one point, I recall Scott got burned. We did something with some flash fire or something. And I know he got a little burn on him, and maybe we pushed it a little too far. And, he was really cool about it. He's like, oh, what's a burn amongst friends, He was just that kind of a guy. So, yeah, it's scary when the star gets, any kind of an injury. You kind of got to be careful. But, yeah, it was a lot of fun. And, by the way, at the end of that whole episode, talking about James Whitmore, he basically – I recall when that happened where he was kind of against me getting that part, my sister she said, well, your job is to win him, to make him appreciate you or be happy, proud of you that you were here. So I really went out of my way to work very hard on that. A lot of guys on the set, the costumers and stuff would say, you're doing too much. Most of the times the consultant just sits around until we need his help. And they kind of felt like that. But then at the end, James Whitmore came up to me, and it seemed like 5 minutes. It was probably about 90 seconds or so. He up and down praised me and said it couldn't have gone better, and he couldn't have been happier with the work I did. So that was really a great ending from that. But you had to earn it. You had to win them because you could feel that kind of tension initially.
That's awesome. Did your stint on Quantum Leap get you any work in the future from that? Did it help?
Well, I did get Columbo. It was around that time I did that one as well. And I can't say whether it got it because of that or it was really more of one of those inside jobs where my sister was working coincidentally. I think that was still involved with the Universal job she had. And I remember that it was an assistant on their desk. She saw it, and she knew my sister knew that I did magic, and she was able to get me in on that. So it seemed like in those situations it was more of a who you knew quite a bit, where that critical moment where they have to make a decision, the right person knows you. So the answer is I'll have to say no to your question. I don't feel like I really got a lot more other than residual checks, which every now and still come in. I think I just saw one for 63 cents. But, that's funny how that works. But
I wanted to ask you about that. because you're in the opening. Do you get paid every episode that airs because you're in that opening for a couple frames?
Time, yeah, that was like a dozen episodes. They put that little quick flash on the what do they call it? I want to say the trailer. The
opening credits, like.
Yeah, I forget there's a phrase for that. But yeah, I did get paid back then. Each week they did air it, and then that kind of fizzles out after about I think a year and a half or something. Then you don't see anything out of that. But then the episode itself would still bring in some residuals. It's interesting what one quick little thing can do. How Hollywood works is amazing.
I haven't seen the episode of Columbo with you in it yet, but I would love for you to tell me about it because I've watched a lot of Columbo and enjoy it, and I'm about to go watch that after we talk today. So,
good.
Can you tell me about that?
Yeah, you'd love it. Columbo Goes to the Guillotine is what it was called. You might just Google that. And Chris Hart was in it. Joyce Beck, I believe she was in it. Bruce Sinclair, and I remember he was in it, or he was at the thing. I don't know, maybe he was a technical. I'm not sure exactly what he did, or he actually appeared. Maybe they edited it out. Columbo Goes to the Guillotine was pretty cool. It was about a dead magician, and Columbo has to figure it out. And I produced a dove at the funeral scene. They had a funeral where the magicians were all dressed in white, I guess, and we each did a trick like paying our homage to the dead magician. And so I produced a dove, and Peter Falk kind of gasps, and then I threw the dove up, and it kind of represented the magician's spirit flying away. So yeah, it was a pretty cool episode. You'd probably get a kick out of it seeing some of the boys way back in the early 90s, I guess. Again, right back around that time frame. So yeah, it was fun. I did. I guess I just produced that dove on that particular episode at that funeral. I think was what it was.
That's pretty awesome. What's your opinion on like magic versus TV magic? Say like TV shows like Black's Magic or something like that, where they kind of show magic for dramatic purposes, but it's not always accurate to what it would be in real life, kind of?
I'm not familiar with Black's Magic.
Oh, it was a good TV show, lasted one season. It was like a Murder, She Wrote spinoff, but it had Hal Linden as a magician that solved murders.
Okay, so kind of a mystery kind of scripted out show that's kind of using magic, but it's not really going to be a magician trick per se.
Yeah, it's not really accurate to the magic tricks that exist. Like the people showing the tricks on the TV shows aren't quite familiar with what they actually are. I don't know if that's a weird question.
Here's the way I see it. If you're doing magic on a TV show as a magic trick, as a performer, then keep it clean, because you're representing the art, you're representing, a lot of us. But what happens is you want to everybody wants to one up the other guy and try to do the very best. So now we can start altering things, changing, stooging, camera cuts, everything on the face of the earth. For God's sake, you're not even seeing anything that took place from the perspective of the audience. And I'm just not a fan of that. I kind of think that it's hurting the art a lot more than helping. I think it's self-serving in some ways. But then at some point, as Bob Brown used to say, 1 + 1 doesn't equal 3. So, you're going to kind of get caught up with, and when you actually have to do something to a live audience, you may not have anything if you've always depended on that as a way. So the answer to your question is, if it's being presented as a performer actually doing something for a live audience, I would be against it. If it's just part of a theme of a show and it's kind of known that it's sort of all BS, then I guess whatever, that's fine. That's just entertainment, and I wouldn't watch it myself because it doesn't interest me. But I usually just want to watch live performances by performers and see, what they're doing.
I agree.
And it's funny when they're doing the real thing. I think you really sense it, you really know it, and you really appreciate it when it's in live and real time, and it's not all the cuts, edits, and then too good to be true kind of an ending. You get to a point where audiences are smart. They sense what's kind of going on. They're really not totally stupid. And I think they appreciate it when it's for real. I think they sense it. I think it is kind of reads a little bit.
Yeah, you can tell, I think.
I remember Bruce Block told me years ago, he was talking about kind of the word we used was, I think, bastardizing magic and all the camera cuts. And it goes back, obviously. It's not just necessarily the current guys, but it just has kind of crept in over the time, and it's just kind of one-upping. But Bruce Block mentioned that, he said, if they do this bad enough, he said that eventually magic will be like mines, where the art has been completely, who cares, in the sense of where do mimes work these days. And that was back, goodness, in probably early 2000 when we were talking about it. And I think that he had a good point on that you keep the integrity to keep jobs up, keep it honest, and have integrity. When you go to your grave, I'd like to be proud of what I've put out there, not feel like I had to get every nickel I could get in any way I could get it. Even though there theoretically are not rules in magic, there should be some etiquette, and there should be some logic, some form of, I don't know if rules is the right word, but I would say etiquette, some form of respect to the art that, if you can't even do it to a live audience, basically you might as well just be watching Star Wars, or a lot of, everybody knows the movies are doing all those tricks, but bringing it into magic is just, to me, such a contradiction of what we're supposed to be doing.
I agree. I couldn't agree more. So what is the life of a professional magician like?
Well, I did it. I don't do it full time right now. I'm just doing it more for fun and sort of on the side. I have other businesses that I run. I did it full time until about 9/11. And then I realized, things are changing. Travel is changing. And I use a lot of fire in my act and things. And I decided to kind of back off, start some businesses, and then just do it when I want to, where I want to, how I want to, rather than just chase every show, because I've just been more lucrative doing other things. So the answer to your question is, when I was doing it full time, you live a lot in hotel rooms, you live a lot on cruise ship cabins, you travel, you're not at home a lot. So those things, I think, to me were negatives, and I was doing a fair amount of creating back then, and it's hard when you're on the road. For me, it's very hard to create. I need my garage, I need my saws and my drill presses and bandsaws, whatever, and things that I can create with and build things. When I'm away from that, it's almost like putting yourself with handcuffs on. You just feel like, okay, I'm doing the show. That's cool. It's going good. And I would always really work hard on the show and try to one up it each time and find something that I could get better, which never seems to end. But I like being at home too, though, so I can, pick up some certain kinds of materials and start working with them, come up with an idea and start making it happen. That for me was a big deal. So the answer to your question is, as a full-time professional, you are traveling a lot. You are living, again, away from home. And that's great. It's pretty awesome. And seeing the fruition of your act grow and accomplish things is a good feeling. So it depends on what your goals are in the business. I had mentioned earlier that, I do other businesses. I've started other businesses. The one thing I would say is, don't be afraid to do other jobs. You don't have to be a full-time magician and only do it to depend on your living. I think it's okay to have other stuff and even do it part-time. Honestly, my act has gotten better since I stopped doing it full-time, and that's because now I don't really fly, but I drive it everywhere. I've got a good-sized truck that I can just load it all up. But back when I was doing it full-time, I would have to fly, and all of a sudden your act is becoming dictated by the airlines and how hard it is to get how many bags and how much weight, and so you're always thinking small. I got to travel. And when I kind of decided not to do that anymore, then I started thinking bigger and just put it in the van. And then a lot of things really got bigger in that respect, and I think better. And maybe some of the others that I would work with that were full-time, I would watch their act keep getting smaller and smaller almost. And it got to a point where I might be closing the show now, when they used to be more of a closer. Now I'm closing because I have let the bonds, the chains of the airlines rules of flying kind of go by the wayside. And I was like, we'll just drive it there. And, we do a fair amount of that now on, I everywhere I go, I do by driving, just because I want the show to be the way I want it to be. That's my goal, and that's what I want to do, and that's what makes me happy.
Have you ever created an original illusion, like based with, obviously magic principles and different techniques, but like a unique illusion that you're pretty proud of?
Yeah. Actually, I think the one of the best was, I call it the inner balloon popping illusion, or it's balloons with a Z. It was where I took a clear balloon and I put a dark balloon inside of a clear balloon, put them in a plexiglass box, and at my command, I would pop the inner balloon. And today the technology has kind of come out, but this was back before 00 that we'd created this. About in 2010 to 12, maybe 2012, David Copperfield saw it, and we sold it to him. So At this point, he's doing it. At last I recall, he was doing it full every night in his show in Vegas. I went over and trained him, sold it to him, and sold him a backup version of it. And it really was really wonderful working with David. So that one, it was not done in Magic before that. I never saw it. The way I actually got that idea was I was at my machine shop building, and we worked a lot in machine shops back then, having guys help me build certain things when it got pretty technical and I couldn't do it. And there was a customer who was mentioning something to the effect of an inner balloon popping without popping the outer balloon back in the 60s of another, technology that was being used back then. And it was a very large apparatus that could do it. And so that immediately, all I saw was magic all over the idea. So then I worked very hard to come up with how we could put this together, and had a couple versions of it. I met a guy named Jim Audette, who was a specialist in that field, and that could get me to the answers I needed, if you will. And we put one together, and we finally got it up and running, and then did it for a number of years, and then Copperfield saw it, and then he bought it. So that's where it's ended. And now I cannot do it on television. In the agreement with David, he has the TV rights, and I've kind of sold them to him. So, so that's the way that goes. But I'm glad. It was such a joy to work with David.
That's amazing. You did something good when David Copperfield buys it from you. Yeah,
likes it. Yeah.
Was he a nice guy, David?
That's a whole nother episode. But yeah, David, I'll tell you in a nutshell, he's unbelievable. He's one of the nicest people you'd ever meet. He really has a very innocent or childlike view of life and of world, and how he, just sees that anything can do. When he's hot on an idea, he will be up 24 hours a day till he gets it. And he does, I swear he doesn't sleep. He'll call you at 2 a.m. He'll call you at 7 a.m. He'll call you all hours of the day with ideas on how to improve it. Can we do this? Can we do that? He really is a true artist that, I think his gift is taking an idea and taking it to the next level. He's just a master at all of that. But yeah, and he's just a really good-hearted person. I had situations where I needed people to get some kind of autographs for other situations, bad health and whatnot, and Dave was right there to take care of it. And he was just very good to work with, very, very kind guy. And backing up to Quantum Leap, thinking of Scott Bakula as well. Speaking of the good-hearted type, I'll tell you a couple little quick Scott stories from that episode. One of them was, the one that really stood out in my mind, two of them actually. There was a scene where he and the little girl, I forgot her name, you mentioned it.
Lauren Woodland?
Yeah. She was having a hard time filming one of the scenes, and Scott stopped the shooting, and he took her by the hand. He goes, "Hey, let's just go for a walk, So they shut the filming down. Scott went. They're like in I want to say warehouses in the studios there. It's just like how you have all these studios lined up at Universal Studios, and he took her out and they just went for a walk. And whatever they were talking about, I don't know, but she came back. When they both came back, they kind of came back refreshed, and she ran through and shot the scene perfect. And it's funny that he just took it on himself to say, we just need a reset. Let's just go talk about things and chill down for a minute, because it was such a problem, and it was amazing how they handled that. And the other thing I remember about Scott on the set one of the days was there was some kind of a mess or something that was out on the set. And I remember Scott just taking the bull by the horns. He literally walked over. He goes, "Listen, don't worry about it." And he just walked over. He grabbed a broom and he just swept it all up. He did it himself, and we went on with the shooting. And it was interesting that here's the star, and he was humble enough to just, he really cared about that show, and he did things his way on that. He was kind of calling a lot of shots in there that, he was controlling it, but he did it his way, and I think he had a very obviously a successful show. But it's amazing how much he had his hands in.
It makes me very happy to hear that.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
So you've got an upcoming event. Could you tell me about that?
Yeah. So I'm going to be playing at the Magic Castle November 13th to the 19th.
That's in L.A., right?
Yeah, that is in Los Angeles at the Magic Castle in Hollywood. And they do 7 nights, so we'll play all 7 nights. I'm actually training a new dog for that, which could be interesting. But I end with a poodle in my act. And let's see, I just had a couple other dates that are in the LA area for It's Magic show. One of them is at the Cerritos Performing Arts Center. That'll be February 11th, which is quite a ways away. And then the other It's Magic, they have one in Santa Barbara in the Lobero Theater. And that's March the 31st of 18. So, like I say, we'll book here and there a couple things that just kind of keep it having fun. And for now, that's most of what I'm doing magic-wise, amongst all the other things that I do. But I get some really busy days here. Sometimes I'm working up to 18 hours a day. It's crazy.
Working there, do you get to meet Neil Patrick Harris?
At the castle,
yeah.
Yes, when he was president. I don't see him there anymore. I think he's not the president anymore, so I don't see him anymore like it used to be. Oh, yeah, he was there all the time. A real good guy.
Awesome. A last question I have. If there's let's say, teenage person, I won't say boy because a girl could do magic too, but if there's a teenage kid watching that episode of Quantum Leap and then listening to this episode and is fascinated by magic and wants to get started somewhere, where would you recommend they start?
Boy, that's a really good question. Obviously, reading is good. I would say I would start in my mind. I would start with developing how I envision magic, how I envision me doing magic. What can I bring to the table? What makes me tick as a magician? What do I want to bring into this world and as a representative of magic? And once you can identify your character, your style, the type of magic that you see yourself doing or you want to do, I think that becomes your direction. And then you go out and you find the ways to make it happen. You might meet people that can, bring you to those goals. You might read books. You might see other guys with similar styles, but of course you don't want to copy them. But you need to also, I think, grasp theater and understand working a stage, what that means. Certain rules that are in stage work that I think are good to keep, because when you don't, I think it'll hurt your performance on stage. So you want to learn a lot of those things, but I would start with whatever style, character, or, presentation that you see yourself putting over. If you just want to do just straight magic tricks, then that's fine. That's fun and everything, but I think it takes a little bit more to carry an audience with you emotionally and follow you and stay with you, because they're going to follow you if you're consistent in the way that you're presenting your magic to them. And that starts from inside your character and maybe higher goals than just doing the tricks.
Thank you so much, Mr. Birch. It's been an honor speaking with you. Really fascinated with magic, and I love the magic in this episode of Quantum Leap, and I really appreciate you talking with me today.
My pleasure.
Go to barenspace.com/questionable calls, a call-in advice show with Juan and Albie. If you are suffering from an unknown illness, have broken out in a funny rash, or feel a sniffle coming on, QC is not the place to go for help. Juan and Albie are not doctors. Their advice is for entertainment purposes only, and no action should be taken without the guidance of a trained healthcare professional. QC is not able to diagnose or treat any illnesses. It's just people thinking out loud and talking it out. However, if you have a comical story regarding a funny rash or a sniffle and care to share, feel free to do so, as laughs are always welcome. Call, Skype, or send us a message on Facebook when it's your turn to be on the show, and we'll put you through. Our phone number is area code 970-400-7395. Our Skype name is QCallsBS.
To the Project Quantum Leap and the Quantum Retrieval Sister Facility in Australia. You have been warned. It is now 2020, and you have failed to prove that time travel is real one time too many. Your funding will not be renewed, unless, of course, the team in Australia can retrieve Dr. Beckett by 5 p.m. today. Sharp.
We have Quantum Leap creator Dan Belisario. And, oh boy, the star of the show, Scott Bakula.
Hello, everyone.
Hey guys, how are you doing today?
Really good. Terrific.
I mean, to start off, this show ended 23 years ago. Is it sort of, or 24, sorry. Are you sort of surprised that it's still so popular?
I'm not surprised because the Leapers were always great fans. Of all the shows I did, the most fans I had were for Quantum Leap. So it doesn't surprise me.
I'm curious, at what point during the show's run did you sort of realize it had gotten so big, it had grown such a big fandom?
I don't know that we ever knew while it was running. We were working so hard to make the darn thing, but we knew that we were making something that was honest and that people really, really responded to and could relate to. And with a lot of, as you all know, with a lot of sci-fi, if you can get people excited about the idea, they're with you forever. And here we are. He did it.
On that note, I want to go back to the beginning, Don. How did you come up with the idea for this show? What inspired it?
I had 3 ideas that I was working on, and I decided I'd do a time show, but to do a time show, I had to make it completely different from the normal time show where somebody goes back to King Arthur's court or back into World War II. So just came up with the idea that he could only leap within his own lifetime. And that put a limit on it and made it mostly happening in the 50s when we made the show in the 80s. So that worked out well. And I went into Brandon Tartikoff, who was then head of NBC, and Brandon is now gone, was terrific. And I explained the whole concept to him. And he said, explain it to me again, so that my mother could understand it in 30 seconds. So I did it in 30 seconds. He said, I still don't get it. I said, your mother got it.
And from the beginning, did you know that you wanted to do a show that touched on so many social issues as well, and it just wasn't a sort of a fun time travel show, but also dealt with real issues as well?
Well, I didn't think about it that this is what I want to do. I want to do social issues, but social issues came naturally to the show. And once we realized that, Scott and I started to do many issues that were fun, especially making him a woman and doing the feminist issue back 23 years ago, 20 longer, probably 8 years ago.
And Scott, when you auditioned for the role, did you know that the role of Sam Beckett would include you having to dress in drag occasionally?
I did not. But it wouldn't have stopped me from going in, obviously, because
as Dustin Hoffman said, I can be a beefsteak tomato. So in Tootsie. No, I didn't know that. I don't think any of us ever imagined that the range and scope of the kinds of roles that Sam could be a part of, or lives that he could get involved in, including a test chimp for NASA. I don't think that was ever part of the grand vision, but it just grew, and as the audience accepted it, because the first time I was in the life body of an elderly African-American driver in the Deep South, they bought it. And we followed that 3 episodes later with me in the 60s in my little pillbox hat and my high heels and my purse in a auto in Detroit working as a secretary, and you guys bought that. And I think pretty much it was like, let's just go then.
Yeah, that's what it was. Every week we came up with something new, and we began to hit social issues because we were able to do it, and people accepted it, and it made a difference.
I just want to say one more thing about that. Don always said, because Dean and I tended to want to push social issues, and Don always said, what we're doing first and foremost, our job, is to put on a great hour of entertainment for the audience. If there are things buried in every episode, or things that the audience wants to pull out and relate to or accept or dig deeper, that's so be it. But the idea was, and I think if you look at the breadth of his work, which is phenomenal, that he has always found relationships between his characters the most important part of his shows, and found the truth in those relationships, and then whatever goes on around them, so be it. But he always found that first, whether it be Magnum or NCIS or JAG or Tales of the Gold Monkey or any of those shows. I'm leaving 75 out, but he was always about the relationships, and everything else grew out of that.
Well, I mean, on that note, I was curious about. I think one of the best things about the show was your chemistry with Dean. I mean, was that there from the beginning?
You asking me?
Oh no,
you know. Well, you watched, you saw it.
I saw it. The chemistry was there. I mean, Scott came in and read for the role, and I played it very straight. And he walked out the door, and I said, "That's the guy. Got to have him." And Dean, of course, offered to do the role. And when Dean offered, we didn't think we would get him. I mean, he was hot on movies. He had just done Married to the Mob. But he did. And when the two of them got together, they began to work out their own little relationship. And they brought a lot of improvisation to the show. And it was terrific.
Yeah, Dean and I, we kind of knew from the get-go, from our first time we read together, that there was something good there, and you never can plan for that. You hope for it, but there's nobody like Dean Stockwell, and the show was. I mean, he was an integral part of it, in many ways more important than me, because he balanced out all of Sam's normalness and with just his zaniness, which is this guy. He was writing Al in his image. But yeah, Dean we got along great, and we had a ball working together.
Dean did everything that was politically incorrect, and Scott did everything that was correct. Put it that way.
I mean, out of curiosity, was it hard writing? It was also hard starring on a show that only had 2 series regulars. I mean, I think that must have put a lot of pressure on both the writing staff and on Scott to be in pretty much every scene as well.
Well, it wasn't a lot of pressure on me, but it was a lot of pressure on Scott, because he had to prepare for the show we were going to shoot next week while he was shooting the show this week. So he's playing a priest, and next week he's an acrobat. He has to train during lunch hour to be an acrobat when he's doing the show about being a priest. That wasn't what it was, but that explains it. And that's a tough thing to do every week. Get prepared for the next week's show while you're doing the show that's currently shooting.
And every once in a while, I wouldn't have those scripts very far in advance.
No, sometimes it only get pages.
It was the hardest job I've ever done. I was on the set every day except for 4 days in 4.5 seasons. And I was usually the first shot of the day in everything all day long because I was the only person that carried the story and then the only person that could see or talk to Dean. So I never got a break except when Dean was me and I was him, which only happened twice. So it was a challenge, but I had great helpers. I had great stunt people that helped me and kept me alive. The writers tried to kill me, and I literally would get a script and say, okay, who's trying to kill me this week? And I survived, and I'm glad. I'll never regret a day or a minute of being on that set.
I mean, you also found time in there to also direct several episodes as well.
Just three. No, I did not. He said no the first 2 years, and he was so smart. I said, "Can I direct this year, Don?" No. Thank goodness, because then I'm directing an episode. I'm starring in every episode because there was no break. Couldn't be. I'll direct the episode that I'm not in. That didn't exist. So I twisted his arm. So I would be shooting an episode. I'd be prepping an episode at the same time. Then I would be finishing an episode, starting a new episode, and cutting an episode, and handing over a director's cut to him. So it was like 3 weeks of insanity, and it was very exhausting. And happily, I'm glad I got to direct them. I had a ball doing it, but that added to a lot of stress.
I mean, I think the other thing with the show is that every week you guys were going to a new location, a new period, a new town. I guess, was it hard on the production side to sort of turn around these new sets every few days?
Well, we had a great team. On set construction, on design, wardrobe, we had a lot of really good people. And everybody loved making the show because it was easy to work with Scott. Of all the people I've worked with over 30-some years in the business, he has been the easiest, and that's the truth.
But the reason the show is so good is because he is a stickler for detail. So if it was the wrong license plate on the wrong year car in 1953, we got it right. If those shirt collars didn't exist in 1974, we got it right. So he started from the top, and that's seeped down to every level and made everybody care because they knew that the boss wasn't looking the other direction. He demanded everybody make the show as perfect as possible, which is almost impossible. It is impossible doing hourly television, but we did. If you go back and look at our shows, the detail is extraordinary, and it's because of him, because he made it happen.
Sometimes it went a little too far. I remember asking for calla lilies on an episode. I thought I wanted calla lilies on a porch. And then I noticed as the episodes went on, actually I didn't notice, but calla lilies kept popping up in every episode. And then one day, Greensman came to me and said, "Don, we can't find any calla lilies in the United States. We have to go to Australia to get them." I said, "What are you talking about?" He said, "Well, you wanted calla lilies in every show." "No, I wanted them in that one show."
If you remember the show and you remember the last episode in the bar, it was an exact replica of his dad's bar in Pennsylvania, down to the pig's knuckle jar on the bar counter. And he had pictures that he'd saved, and the pictures went out to the set designers and Cameron and everybody to make this bar correct, because I'm flying my family, his family, in to see the bar. And they all came from Pennsylvania, and they all had this huge flashback that they were in their uncle or dad, or whomever they were, however they were related. And it was amazing. That bar was amazing.
The bar was an exact duplicate of the bar. And to tell you how exact it was, there was one wall that used to have a door that went through to another room. And that door had been sealed off and the wall painted over, but you could still see the outline of the door slightly if you looked real close. So I had them put that in, and they said to me, you can't see it. The camera will never see it. I said, I don't care. I know it'll be there. So they did. They thought I was nuts, but and maybe I was.
On the subject of the series finale, I mean, I think when it aired, and it was somewhat controversial. I mean, looking back on it now, how do you guys sort of feel about the series finale?
Oh, I loved it. It was emotional for me because it was my home. I was 18 years old when the bar was replicated, we replicated the bar when I was 18. And the finale, I didn't want the show to end, but it had to. So it was hard. I was proud of that episode. Everybody was.
Well, and you should have been. It was a great episode. Last episodes are always controversial, and I always say to writers, if you want to challenge more than writing just an hour of television, write an hour of television that is the last hour of television that show will ever have on. Write it so that it could also come back next fall. Write it so that it could possibly become a movie of the week, or write it so that it could still potentially be a feature film someday. And make everybody happy. And Don, if you go back and watch that episode, he filled in all of those circles. He checked off all those boxes. And yes, not everybody loved it. My 11-year-old son at the time, when he watched the show, he was in tears and wouldn't speak to me because he said, I don't believe you didn't get to go home. And he was heartbroken about it. And I gave him Don's number.
I mean, the great thing, or the upside of Sam not being able to go home, I mean, I think is right now we're in this sort of huge sort of string of revivals and reboots. I have to ask, is there any chance of Quantum Leap ever coming back in some form?
Well, I don't know. I just finished writing a Quantum Leap feature. I don't know what's going to happen with it, but I did write it.
Did everybody hear that? He just finished writing a Quantum Leap feature.
He has to clue you in.
Can you tease what it's about? Like, is it? I guess how did you come up with the story? Is it something that's been tossing around in your mind for a while?
The story for the feature?
Yeah.
No. I write things exactly the same way. I just start writing and I let it take me wherever it's going to take me. I'm entertained the same way the audience is. So I just put Scott and Dean in my head, kind of rebooted them, and went from there.
I think if he keeps at it, someday he's going to be successful, don't you?
Well, I think that's all the time we have. Thank you both for coming. This has been great. Thank you all for coming as well.
Thanks, everybody. Good to see you all. Dean says hello.
This is Donald P. Belisario, and you are listening to the Quantum Leap Podcast.
So that was an amazing interview.
Dude, that Dan Birch guy is
magical.
It was
captivating.
Amazing. And it was cool how he talked about the difference between like real magic and TV magic. It was pretty cool.
That was one of my favorite parts. Now I get it more.
Yeah.
I don't get it.
Maybe we come away with a little bit better understanding of why it was like trash magic in the TV show.
Yeah. I don't blame Dan Birch at all.
I doubt it.
Yeah.
I don't blame him at all.
He was probably like, I helped with the whole episode. What are you talking about?
He's like, why in the world are they torturing those animals? Oh, man. Wow. Like, I wish that we could rise to the caliber
of the Quantum Leap podcast.
The Quantum Leap podcast.
Dude, your interviews are so much better than mine. So much more entertaining. My favorite part is like when you say, I'm so high, I don't know if I asked you this already, but I'm going to ask you again.
Have I actually said that?
Oh, yeah, a few times.
Have I really?
I don't know.
Oh, no, I'm pretty stoned. It's very possible. I like that Serenity is looking at us like, what are they doing?
So I guess I guess Christopher DeFilippis has a segment too now that we're going to. Something about finding radios or something.
I like about radios in Quantum Leap.
I hate Christopher.
I want to get on.
Keep that in. Make sure you keep that in.
I want to get on Christopher's junk. So there.
Come on, keep it in. He's gonna message me like, "What the?"
No, so.
He's a radio enthusiast.
Have you listened to the radio segments?
So I haven't listened to the radio segments, but I have been listening to like this really fascinating podcast about antique radios, which is really weird.
Maybe it's Christopher.
I feel like I need to go back and listen to the radio segments.
Well, if you go to theflipside.com, he has all the Quantum Leap radio sightings. That's what it's called.
How crazy would it be if I've been listening to and I just don't realize it? Even though
I've, my God, I know him.
Even though I've like talked to him like before and find him really engaging.
Christopher.
I will reiterate.
That's twice.
We're
staying it in there. We're staying, keeping it in there.
I want his body pressed against my body.
Well, you're not the only one.
Yeah.
I spent a weekend with him in Dallas. I'll never forget.
And you had it pressed against your body.
I tried. He kept saying he was married and it wasn't appropriate. So.
And you were like,
but Heather said it was okay.
In Dallas stays in Dallas.
Well, we did go antiquing together. So
you were kind of an old married couple.
Yes. It was fun.
I want our relationship to be a little more slap bang than that.
Well, like what you were talking about earlier.
Yeah, just a little.
And with that, Christopher
DeFilippis.
He's got a few Coronas in him.
Putting down my second Corona.
Christopher DeFilippis with radio sightings.
Let's do it.
I'm Christopher DeFilippis, and it's time once again for the Quantum Leap Radio Sightings, where I tell you about all of the vintage radios that appear on Quantum Leap. And here we are at Season 3, Episode 8, The Great Spontini. Now, there's only one radio in the Great Spontini, and we've seen it on the show before. It's the 1949 RCA that appeared on the shelf in the restaurant kitchen in one strobe over the line, which aired earlier in Season 3. Now, if you recall, I pegged the radio as an ivory 8X542 or a white 8X547, and who am I kidding? Of course you don't recall, because who else cares about this stuff but me? Anyway, the RCA is on a shelf in Spontini, too, in Harry's dressing room at the nightclub. You can see it when Sam is kissing Elaine, parked between a bouquet of trick flowers and some weird, scary clown head. It's also visible when he's talking to Maggie and her sleazy lawyer boyfriend. But it's mainly out of focus, and I probably would have had trouble identifying it had I not seen it in one strobe. You might also recall, and I'm sure you don't, that I own this model radio in a different color. And being that Sam's leap date is 1974, the 1949 8X is far from anachronistic. In fact, the nightclub is so run down that I can easily buy that radio has been sitting on that same shelf in universe for 25 years. Now, this is the second time in the third season that I'm telling you about a radio that has appeared on the show before. The first was the Bulova that showed up back-to-back in Miss Deep South and again in Black on White on Fire. But despite the magical premise of the Great Spontini, this is far from the first time that set decorators have used sleight of hand and recycled radios as background props. They did it a lot in the first 2 seasons, and I'll tell you about them all at some point in future podcasts. But if you can't wait, you can find all of the radios that have appeared in Quantum Leap up until this episode on my website at DeFlipside.com. Just click on the Quantum Leap podcast link and look for the radio dial. Until next time, radio fans, this is your Quantum Leap radio guru tuning out.
So they weren't anachronistic, but it's okay. It wasn't the worst part about this episode. The worst part about this episode was the episode.
Not the radios.
No, that's not true. The episode was okay. The
Yeah, it was
worst
good.
part is definitely the theme song.
The theme song?
No, I'm just kidding.
Everybody but Scott Bakula, please be on our show.
So seriously, like the theme song brings back so many memories. It's unbelievable. Like
you love it or hate it? You love it.
I love it. I love
Both
it.
versions? There's two versions.
So now-
I like the shorter version, not
so
the longer
now
version.
It's a little weird to me because I'm like, wow, this is like so dated. It's unreal. But I feel like pretty much, like I feel like in 20 years the Game of Thrones theme is going to come on. And people are going to be like, that is so dated. It's unreal.
But see, the thing is about this show, there's not, even though it is dated and there is a lot of old stuff in it, because I have so many fond memories of the show, it doesn't matter to me. Like, I'm enthralled with a lot of what goes on, and I don't notice any of that stuff. It's kind of weird.
One thing that's interesting about it that prevents it from being like super overly dated is because it's a time travel thing. They're leaning on like this is the 60s, this is the 70s, this is the 40s, this is the 50s. They do so much of that it doesn't fall into the trap of this is a 1980s sitcom and it is awful and everybody's hair looks stupid and everybody's clothes looks ridiculous.
I'm right there with you.
I know
Because
that.
if they do the disco episode, it's going to look like that no matter when you make it.
They do. Well, they have the preview for the next episode where he's in the biker gang, the 50s biker gang. I was like, oh, cool, it's the Wild Bunch.
I have a confession to
Oswald
make.
from the Drew Carey Show.
Oswald Cobblepot.
I have a confession to make. I've never seen Rebel Without a Clue.
What?
That's a thing?
I
thought that was like the whole premise of the show.
that I've seen it all. That I've watched
so
it
has
all.
Heather seen it?
No.
That would be amazing.
That would be amazing.
I watched ahead a little bit ago, and I watched 3 or 4 episodes ahead when we took a little hiatus, just so I got in the mood again for
little
Quantum Leap.
hiatus?
Yeah, a little hiatus. And I got to this episode, and I was like, I've never seen this episode, so I stopped. Because this next episode is going to be the first time for me.
Wow.
It happens every once in a while. Even with an episode of Star Trek, I'll be like, okay, either I had a stroke or I just never saw this one.
You had a stroke.
Probably.
For the very first time.
Shh. We're going to owe them money.
Oh, that's true. You can
No.
only do 15 seconds, right?
That was way less than 15 seconds.
Is it 15 seconds? Is that the threshold? I think
30?
we've been at 30 seconds
I think it
this
was
whole
30.
time.
It was 30. They said 30 on the beer podcast I edited.
Cool.
So
All right.
I did
All right.
like 28 seconds.
I like 30.
30's good. Heather?
Heather's amazing.
She agrees with
Regale
30.
us
absolutely
with something. Heather, come on.
Would you like to introduce Quantum Deep?
Quantum Deep?
Quantum Deep.
That sounds
Is
like
that
one of
Hayden's
the, that
segment?
sounds like a
That's Hayden's-
TOTLB segment.
that's Hayden's segment.
We're going deep.
Quantum Deep.
I wish like my eye roll and head shake appeared on the podcast at that name in general.
She just knows what Quantum Deep is from. It's an actual porn parody version of Quantum Leap.
Oh, well, I'll be looking that
we
up.
need to
yeah,
watch
watch
that. We need to watch it
it's so
together.
bad.
It's so bad. We did watch it. So bad.
Like it's one of those ones where you're like, oh, this is horrible.
So much hair.
Yes, also that.
That right there is our mind melt going. We've definitely done enough episodes of TLTLB. Time to quit. Doesn't get better than this moment right here.
Hey Leapers, this is Hayden the Wizard. Here, Quantum Locomo Deep. Quantum Leap is threatened. Man the keyboards. Send letters. Do your duty to the fandom. I've always wanted to use that spell. What is magic? Magic is a concept that many talk about, but it's difficult to define, and when one does put some thought behind it, ends up uncovering more questions than answers. Does magic exist? If so, is magic something tangible? If not, is magic just illusion? Or is there a scientific basis behind what we see and believe? Is magic a sensory experience or a feeling, or is there an element of the supernatural? Is it possible that magic is just a hand-waving technique to try to explain something that has been observed which does not yet make sense? Is magic the building of one's curiosity and the need to explore, to experiment, to look for patterns, to build or adapt knowledge, to attempt to solve problems? Is it possible that everything that doesn't make sense will end up with a rational explanation in future? You've probably noticed that my line of questioning ended up sounding quite scientific, In fact, the scientific method is a process of observing, generating questions, performing a review of research already undertaken to form hypotheses, carrying out experiments to test your predictions, refining and developing general theories. There's also the issue of repeatability, whether others can perform similar experiments and gain similar results, or else falsify your claims. It is said that scientific advancement, or any sufficiently advanced technology, is indistinguishable from magic. So, it would make sense that when we think of things that seem mystical or unexplainable, that we naturally have trouble suspending our disbelief and naturally let our minds wander to try to think about how it has happened. There is a fine line between fantasy and science fiction. Fantasy is imagination. Science fiction is essentially the same as forecasting, but for entertainment purposes. Concepts like traveling under the sea or through the air or into space are commonplace today, but in the late 19th century, they were simply a gleam in the eyes of people like Jules Verne, who would look at what was currently possible with their technology and how it was advancing, and dared to imagine what would happen if you extrapolated on those advancements. Let's look at Quantum Leap. Back in the early 1990s, concepts like holograms, supercomputers capable of accessing information about anyone in any point in recent history, and handheld computers and communication devices again just seemed like a fun way to make the show seem futuristic, but proved to be extremely prophetic. Now, in the 21st century, thanks to the internet, children have more information available at their fingertips than their grandparents had in their entire lifetimes. Everybody has their own digital footprint, especially with social media, and with portable communication devices able to instantly access whatever they like, able to build and shape the internet according to their own education and experiences. Holograms are also a viable option for communication, transmission of information, and entertainment. For example, to make the world aware of how ICT could be used to reduce the carbon footprint that one would normally leave by travelling on an aeroplane, in 2008, Prince Charles made his appearance at the World Future Energy Summit in Abu Dhabi as a three-dimensional hologram. We also have massive concerts with living singers performing duets with holograms of singers who have passed. Why, in 2019, ABBA will be going on tour with massive shows, with live bands playing the music, but with the performances by Agnetha, Frida, Benny and Bjorn being holographic projections of their performances back in the 1970s and 80s. Quantum Leap is also a fantastic demonstration of how people in the past would freak out by advanced technology as some form of magic. Sam and Al would often pass off their situation as something supernatural. Just a few of many examples. In A Portrait for Troyan, Jimmy had been using a recording of his own voice to unhinge Troyan by having it recorded at such a high frequency that only animals and some women like Troyan would be able to hear it. He was trying to make her think that her late husband Julian wanted her to die as well. However, the equipment that Tim, Sam's host, had was also advanced enough to be able to pick up the audio of Al that was being projected into the past. This meant that Al's voice could be passed off as Julian to try and reassure Troyan and keep her safe. In A Little Miracle, as Michael Blake could see Al, and since Al was appearing as a hologram and could not be touched, Al could be passed off as the ghost of Christmas Future. He could also project archived video footage that Ziggy had accessed to show Blake's rather bleak future. This proved to be instrumental in convincing Blake to change his selfish ways. In Another Mother, Last Dance Before an Execution, and Justice, since small children could see Al while others could not, he could convince them that he was an angel, and with the children's trust, was able to get them to carry out tasks that Al would otherwise not be able to do. And in The Great Spontini, during the divorce hearing, Al told Sam that Jamie was in danger of dying, which caused Sam to run from the courtroom. Maggie immediately believed Sam and joined him to try to help save Jamie. While this could have been extremely suspicious for any outsiders watching, and could have been disastrous for Harry, as it was technically Sam's fault that Jamie's life was in danger, it proved to work in Sam's favour, because it backed up the claim that Jamie had made that Jamie and Harry share a bond which meant they knew what each other were feeling. And Maggie was so grateful she agreed to let Harry have equal custody. As the science fiction genre seemed to rely on looking at scientific and technological advancements over recent history and looking at trends to make a prediction or forecast about what is likely to happen in future, it does pose the questions: how accurate are futurists with their predictions, and what do futurists predict will happen in our near future? Let's have a listen to what Arthur C. Clarke, a well-known futurist and science fiction author, he wrote 2001: A Space Odyssey, predicted back in 1964 what life would be like 50 years later, our present day.
Trying to predict the future is a discouraging and hazardous occupation because the prophet invariably falls between two stools. If his predictions sound at all reasonable, you can be quite sure that in 20 or at most 50 years, the progress of science and technology has made him seem ridiculously conservative. On the other hand, if by some miracle a prophet could describe the future exactly as it was going to take place, his predictions would sound so absurd, so far-fetched, that everybody would laugh him to scorn. This has proved to be true in the past, and it will undoubtedly be true, even more so, of the century to come. The only thing we can be sure of about the future is that it will be absolutely fantastic. So, if what I say now seems to you to be very reasonable, then I'll have failed completely. Only if what I tell you appears absolutely unbelievable have we any chance of visualizing the future as it really will happen. Let's start by looking at the city of the future. Some people think that it will be like this. And they're quite right. In fact, everything you see now already exists. All the materials, all the ideas, these things could be put into practice immediately. But what about the city of the day after tomorrow? Say the year 2000. I think it will be completely different. In fact, it may not even exist at all. Oh, I'm not thinking of the atom bomb and the next Stone Age. I'm thinking of the incredible breakthrough which has been made possible by developments in communications, particularly the transistor and, above all, the communications satellite. These things will make possible a world in which we can be in instant contact with each other, wherever we may be, where we can contact our friends anywhere on Earth, even if we don't know their actual physical location. It will be possible in that age, perhaps only 50 years from now, for a man to conduct his business from Tahiti or Bali just as well as he could from London. In fact, if it proves worthwhile, almost any executive skill, any administrative skill, even any physical skill, could be made independent of distance. I am perfectly serious when I suggest that one day we may have brain surgeons in Edinburgh operating on patients in New Zealand. When that time comes, the whole world will have shrunk to a point, and the traditional role of the city as a meeting place for man will have ceased to make any sense. In fact, men will no longer commute. They will communicate. They won't have to travel for business anymore. They'll only travel for pleasure.
It is freaky just how accurate his predictions were. While it might not be an exact process, it is clear that there is some validity to forecasting as a science. So, what do futurists predict is in store for us in the near future? Humans and machines will be intimately merged. Instant communication devices will be implanted to move from an internet to a brain net. Everything that one could possibly want to access or upload can be done so instantly simply by one's thoughts. It is even possible that this instant uploading and downloading from one's thoughts could make it possible to read each other's minds. Neurotechnology will be used to reprogram human biology, deactivating dangerous or diseased cells and reactivating damaged cells. Most genetic diseases will be eradicated. Artificial limbs will be attached and controlled entirely with one's thoughts, and replacement organs will be grown from stem cells and 3D printed, thus eliminating the risk of organ rejection. Speaking of 3D printing, nearly everything will end up built through printing. Most structures will be constructed through printing, and food and pharmaceuticals will be available to be printed on demand. While we're on the subject of food, there will be global food and water crises due to climate change. Most food will need to be bioengineered, and most drinking water will be from desalination and reverse evaporation from the atmosphere. Growing automation will create mass unemployment, and the majority of jobs that are available will require computer programming. It's not all bad, though. As for our lifestyles, there will be a worldwide digital currency. Virtual or augmented realities will be available en masse, with realistic surrogates or avatars. These surrogates can also be used to replicate people who have passed away, using their digital footprint to replicate their personality. There will be instantaneous universal translators, enabling real-time communication between any humans in their own tongues, and in some cases even cross-species communication. We also won't be limited by our own planet. It is predicted that there will be many space colonies and a space tourism industry, as well as exploration and even mining on nearby asteroids. While the predictions that have been made seem scary, they are also incredibly exciting. It is only possible to really understand the possibilities of the future and to prevent possible disasters if we try to extrapolate the trends of scientific and technological achievement to imagine that the ludicrous, even magical, may seem achievable.
You're an educator first, but also a disciplinarian and a humanitarian. You need the energy of youth and the wisdom of age. You have to be a mediator, and above all, a friend. The more you think about the roles our teachers must play, the more you know they deserve our applause.
Thanks for that, Scott. I couldn't agree with you more. Hey, Leapers, it's Hayden McQueenie here. I'm actually a teacher. I teach mathematics. I'm an experienced tutor as well. I'm currently teaching engineering maths at RMIT University and doing a lot of private tutoring as well. I've recently started tutoring online. So if anybody in any year level, so primary, secondary or tertiary, needs any assistance with their mathematics, by all means send me an email. My email is Hayden, Hayden, .McQueenie, McQueenie, at rmit.edu.au. If you want to know a little bit about my qualifications, I have a Bachelor of Applied Science in Mathematics. I also have a Diploma of Education and a Master of Education. I've been teaching in secondary and tertiary schools for many years, and I'm also the numeracy curriculum developer at the Technology Institute of Victoria, as well as a 5-time presenter at the Mathematical Association of Victoria Conference. So I'm pretty sure I can help you out with your maths. Send me an email and we'll discuss how I can help you out. So once again, that email is Hayden, Hayden, .McQueenie, McQueenie, at rmit.edu.au. I look forward to hearing from you.
Thanks, Hayden. That was very informative.
I love it.
Most genuine statement said on this show.
We've only been together once, and I already love it.
You could say something like,
"Oh, yeah, that's getting edited."
Yeah. Hey, the Patreon version. These 3 people paid for it, and they're going to get it.
We should put it on our Patreon.
We should.
Patreon.com/TOB podcast. Both.
We're the best.
Both.
I'm the best.
Are you a magician?
Yeah. Duh.
Favorite magician? Go of all time.
Easily. No, I got to think about it, actually. Now I really have to think about it. So I love David Blaine. I love up-close street magic.
That's my favorite kind of magic.
Okay, so Chris Angel's gimmick is stupid. I hate that I'm metal magician. But his illusions are on
But some of what he does isn't really like he sits in a
corny.
box for like a week or something like that. Like,
Is that David Blaine or Chris Angel?
That's
no,
David
Chris
Blaine.
Angel. I thought it was Chris
No,
Angel.
that's
other
David
one.
Blaine.
David Blaine.
I
yeah.
thought it was the
He's
Mind
like,
Freak.
No.
Oh, yeah. Maybe
Mind
he does
Freak.
I think
some
it
of
was
that
the Mind
stuff, but
Freak.
David Blaine did the thing where he stood on top of the pole for
Yeah,
like a week.
it's
and
not
stuff like
magic.
that.
And
It's just
a
fucking-
helicopter was supposed to like levitate him away, but it never came, so he just jumped off.
Yeah.
And he like sat in a fishbowl for a week or something.
Yeah, I'm out on that.
It
Okay,
wasn't
so let's
entertaining.
favorite
magician, illusionist.
I'm going to say David Blaine.
Okay.
It's probably my favorite.
That's
Like
fair.
I really like the close-up stuff. Like I think the thing that really got me with him was the time when one of his first TV specials when he throws the pack of cards at the window and the card that the people picked sticks on the back side of the window.
Mm-hmm.
Like I've looked it up. I know how it works now, but still
it's
rad.
pretty amazing,
Like,
right?
And definitely the devil. Like,
I like
would
when
be
he's
that
like
guy.
burning himself. And
Yeah.
I love David Blaine.
Is that your pick?
I love him exactly for the street magic. It's
Yeah.
like the best when you're. And who knows if it's really like real people that are just kind of watching him, or if they stage some of that. I don't know, but it seems legit to me. And that's
It's entertainment.
right.
It is entertaining,
And
so it
I
doesn't
do
really
love that.
matter if it's
Right.
real or not.
okay, so to pull it into our world, your favorite magic like themed film or like TV show or something like that.
Me, I have two. TV show is Black's Magic with Hal
I don't know
Linden.
what you're talking about.
The Barney Miller. There was one season where Murder She Wrote, but it was with the guy from Barney Miller, and he solved murders with magic. And I actually
Wow,
own
you're old.
blacksmagic.com and plan to do a podcast on it one day. True story. Movie-wise, The Escape Artist. Have you ever seen that?
Yeah.
That was really good.
I don't think I have any favorite.
It's like
magic
early 90s movie, maybe?
Yeah.
Yeah, it was really good. I watch it like once a year.
Huge fan of Lord of Illusions.
Yes.
Probably one of my favorite movies, like revolving around magic, even though it's like horror and stuff.
Mhm.
Giant Clive Barker fan. So like, just it was an amazing translation into like a film. I thought.
Is Scott Bakula in that?
I think so. I
Yeah.
think he plays Valentine in it.
Heather, favorite
Or
magician?
no, not Valentine. Diamore. Sorry.
Diamore.
I am probably going to get a lot of negative feedback for this, but magic's not really my thing. It's not. I don't dislike it. Like I'll watch it if it's on, but it's never been a thing that I sought out to watch. Like I think like the only magic based movie I've ever seen is like The Illusionist or whatever. I mean like that's. And as far as like I've seen David Blaine and Chris Angel, but like if it's on somewhere and I don't change it, like there's never really been a time that I've wanted to watch it, especially on TV. Like if there's a magic show or something, especially with my daughter, like watching her reaction to it, but it's just not really my
I like the
thing.
guy who ruined magic.
Oh, the
one
with the
guy
mask
that
on?
was
Who
on
ended up
TV.
being somebody nobody'd ever heard of before.
Yeah.
What was
He
that
just,
called?
like, YouTubed
Magic's
how
Greatest Secrets
Yeah.
Revealed. I
He
used to
just,
watch
like,
that.
YouTubed a bunch of crap. It's like, hey, this is how they do this.
This is how they
stuff.
do that. Yeah, usually he got it
got a
right,
lot
but
of
not.
flack for
Oh
that.
yeah.
Death threats.
Yeah, it was like wrestling back then.
They threatened to make him disappear?
Yeah, well, they're taking a lot when you give away the magic secrets. Then what is there?
Favorite movie magic trick when Joker makes that pin disappear?
Oh yeah, that was funny. That was actually really good.
She doesn't like magicians, which I always thought magicians were cool my whole life, and I grew up wanting to be an illusionist. I did 3 magic shows with huge audiences. It was a benefit show that I did for Goodwill when I was like 16. And I had my nieces as assistants and stuff. But I always thought, wow, if I knew magic, I could get the girls. No. Girls don't like magic.
No, they do not.
They do not at all.
They find you corny and obnoxious.
Yes, and they're like, why are you wearing
you
that
usually
jacket?
are
in
kind
the
of
scene?
arrogant-y. I feel like you.
You're
I
like,
think you kind of have
This is
to
why
be
you're stupid.
Like, yeah.
That's how chicks feel. That's how women feel when you say, this is why you're stupid. No, it's just I'm trying to show you something cool. My favorite illusionist was like when I was really young was Doug Henning, the hippie one.
Yeah.
But then as soon
Kurt
as
Henning's brother?
Exactly. Magic illusion. But when David Copperfield came out, I thought he was like the best ever, and I saw him in person. I don't know how many times. Got his autographed. I dressed like him for probably 5 years. Long sleeve black shirts and white T-shirts, or the opposite. But everything had to be black or white. And I don't know. David Copperfield is probably still my favorite magician. I did like Chris Angel until he did that reality show where they judge different kinds of magic.
Oh yeah,
and he was just a dick to everybody.
You know who else I really like is Darren Brown.
What does he do?
Darren Brown is a British mentalist / illusionist. He does a lot of psychological tricks where he'll set up a room and basically convince you to think something. Mentalism is cool to me, because it's actual magic, it's quote unquote actual magic, but basically where you're playing into somebody's psychology and leading them into telling you the answer. I love that.
I've done magic tricks like that, different things like that.
He does this thing. You do yourself a favor, look him up, and there's a video of him convincing Simon Pegg that he wants a BMX bike, and it's amazing because Simon Pegg is 100% sold. I want a BMX bike. And he's all, okay, so show me what you wrote down on the piece of paper 2 weeks ago. And he pulls it out and it says leather jacket or whatever. And he's all, and Simon Pegg is so sold. He's like, what? I would never have written that down. I want a bike. I've always wanted a bike. It's just the way he worms his way into your brain is fantastic.
Penn and Teller. Those are probably my favorite.
And they're not even friends.
And Amazing Jonathan.
No.
Amazing Jonathan was always
He's
great.
funny.
He makes me
really
laugh.
Funny.
Yeah.
They don't hang out. That's what they've said that's the reason that they've been able to stay together for so long is they don't see each other except when they're doing their acts.
They're really good. I don't know. I like everybody but Chris Angel and David Blaine. David Blaine,
so basically the guys I like. Awesome, Albie.
Well, I don't dislike David Blaine, but it just...
I'm out.
Yeah,
I'm out.
Next segment.
In this segment, author of Beyond the Mirror Image, The Observer's Guide to Quantum Leap, our friend Matt Dale talks a little about the inspiration behind the book, his journey, and the Quantum Leap timeline.
My fascination with fictional timelines began in 1992 when I read the Star Trek chronology. This was the first time I'd read a really thorough presentation of a fictional universe, laid out in a factual, documentary-style format. To say I was amazed was an understatement. I was conscious, even at a fairly early age, that TV universes were generally made up by myriad writers as they went along, with often little checking back and rarely planning ahead. I was under no illusion that Gene Roddenberry had sat down in 1963 and decided which year Jean-Luc Picard and his brother would fall out. And yet the writers of this book, Michael and Denise Okuda, had taken hundreds of hours of TV and film and managed to weave them together as a single, coherent story. I immersed myself in the book to the point where I could watch an episode from the then 25-year history and know in my head what else was happening, which future characters were being born, getting married, passing away, at the same time. It certainly enriched that universe and gave it extra life. Now, the Okudas were very lucky. The writers of the Star Trek shows had carefully avoided referencing specific dates unless it was required for the plot lines, and, back in the days before Voyager and Enterprise, there were just a handful of time travel episodes. And the production order generally followed the chronological order, the 5th and 6th movies being the notable exceptions. So there was little complexity and lots of room for assumptions. Could such a book be attempted about a time travel franchise? Fast forward to 2013 and another influential book, Rich Handley's Back in Time, a chronology of the Back to the Future universe. Here the author was able to put into the written word a full timeline of a franchise that specialised in time travel, giving focus to the expanded universe beyond the films. However, Handley again had some benefits, namely that the majority of the BTTF universe, the cartoon series and the comics, simply involved the main characters popping into certain times and having a fun, irreverent adventure. The true time-altering antics were limited to just 3 films, all of which were very carefully plotted out, albeit retrospectively on the part of the second and third, so as to avoid contradictions. Handley's job wasn't making sense of the universe, writers Zemeckis and Gale had already done that, but rather presenting it neatly. Which leads me to 2015, when I began work on my own reference guide, Beyond the Mirror Image. Intended to be the last word in Quantum Leap reference material, I was naturally excited by the opportunity to create a complete and glorious timeline of events, inspired by the fabulous work the Okudas and Handley had produced before. Just a couple of small problems. Like Star Trek, I was looking at nearly 100 hours of television that had been made up as it went along. Plus, I decided to include novels, comics, and even unproduced but licensed works. And like Back to the Future, the show focused on time travel. Every episode would provide a large number of data points which would generally, but not always, be consistent within the episode itself, but with the limitations of time when producing TV, paid little attention to other works within the QL canon. Even the novels and comics added extra complexity here. Many of these were written by fans. Fans, like me, were keen to resolve apparent inconsistencies. Many of the books, in particular, would try and find an excuse to look at contradictions A and B and try and solve them. One of the best novels, in fact, was entirely based on such a premise. More on that in a moment. This was fine, except in some cases I was aware of further contradictions C, and the solution would sometimes make things worse by focusing on A and B and forgetting C. The freedom the Okudas had when writing the Star Trek chronology suddenly was not afforded to me because of my decision to include these fan-written but official works which solved matters in particular ways that I might not have agreed with. Despite all this, I came to a conclusion. Mostly by sheer luck, the Quantum Leap universe hangs together amazingly well. It was extremely rare that I would have to hand-wave away any facts, and it was generally possible to put everything into one mix. There are, however, some exceptions, and here I'd like to present just a few favourites. John Beckett's death. In Genesis, we learn that Sam's father died in 1974, after which his widow Thelma moved to Hawaii to be with Katie and her second husband. In Kamikaze Kid, we learn that Katie's first marriage occurred when she was 17, and the leap home gives her birth date as 1957, which means this first marriage was also in 1974. She must have got through 2 marriages in 1 year. But more than that, the leap home gives a new date for John's death of 1972, 2 years before the move to Hawaii with hubby number 2. The novel Knights of the Morning Star deals with this a little by explaining that Thelma lived by herself for 2 years before moving to Hawaii. We can therefore use this new breathing room to accept almost every fact here as correct. Katie marries in 1974, and again soon after, perhaps 1975. John also dies in 1974, per Genesis rather than the leap home's 1972, and Thelma then moves to Hawaii in 1976. The leap home date of John's death in 1972 simply can't be made to fit with other established facts, even allowing for ripples in the timeline, unless one such ripple changes Katie's birth date. Sam goes to college. In Animal Frat, Al claims Sam was 16 when he went to MIT. Sam turned 16 in August 1969, but we see in the leap home that in November 1969 he was still at high school. Perhaps he started MIT in the fall of 1970 and began some work towards MIT prior to his birthday in August. Perhaps Al was off by a year in Animal Frat. Knights of the Morning Star further confuses things by suggesting he skipped some early school years, which gives the opportunity for him to have left for college even earlier than the events of the leap home. And, in a 1996 Quantum Leap marathon on the Sci-Fi Channel, Bakula even explained that Sam was in MIT at age 15. Al's repatriation from Vietnam. In MIA, Al says that he's repatriated in 1973. However, in the Leap Home Part 2, this is redated to 1975. The novel Pulitzer explains that the release of Maggie's prize-winning photo of him caused the Vietnamese to change the location he was held in, preventing his rescue in 1973 and changing the timeline by the point that Al makes the second comment. Sammy Joe. Well, fortunately, the Bold Leap Forward spin-off series proposed in 2003 never came to pass, as it featured Sammy Jo Fuller as a teenager in the 21st century, despite Trilogy Part 3 establishing her birth as 1967. Would this have been addressed? Who knows? Finally, if you want to know the date of Sam's first leap, the only place it's formalised is in Mirror's Edge, which places it 4 years, 8 months, and 12 days prior to the main events of that novel, making it April 14th, 1995. The novel Prelude states that it's a Friday, which lines up with this, and while the author's introduction to Angels Unaware puts forward a theory that it was May 16th, the author then does not use this date for the body of the book. So, April 14th it is. Thanks to Mirror's Edge author Carol Davis for sorting that one. Keeping track of Quantum Leap's multiple timelines. It's been one heck of a journey.
Break a leg.
You know, I was going to tell you guys a bit more about term definitions and historical context and all that, which sounds boring. Really wouldn't have been, take my word. But as this is the episode about magic, what better time to introduce you guys to the magic if? After all, you gotta believe it, so they can believe it, right? But you say, it's not happening right now, it's not real, are you mad? What are you talking about? I'm not in outer space or wherever. You know what? you'd be absolutely right. There will be a level of duality. Even the audience will always feel that, even to a little degree. More about that at another time. So, in a way, you will be inhabiting two realities at once, which can take any number of shapes. And some will work for you and others not, and as they say, it isn't an exact science. And at the same time, you also have to be aware of what's real. You know, you don't want to fall off the stage, bump into a mic, knock over one of the extras or so. It's not something you're looking for. So for the other reason than that, you want to be aware of the reality. And there's another, even more important reason you might not suspect, but here you go. Your brain isn't silly either, and it will call you bluff. If you try to 100% do the absolutely last iota, deny the truth, be totally only in your imaginary world, it'll trip you up. Just trust me on this. You may wish to argue, fair enough, but my standpoint is you really don't want a brain shortcut, and it really doesn't look that well on screen either. So what to do? Well, there are ways to integrate what's going on around you, even things that annoy you. Now, some of you might remember, it's been a few years back, I don't know when, but there was this pretty famous rant by Christian Bale. No disrespect, he knows his stuff, so he's not a negative example, but it is a good example for something distracting you, especially when a really difficult scene is going on, right? What can you do? Well, you can admit this truth, you can integrate this reality into this world, and if you're annoyed, and you have to be annoyed in character, hey, you're in luck. If you're annoyed and you need anything similar, you can turn this annoyance to what you need to a degree. Now, admittedly, this technique has its limits, but here you go. Stay aware of what's going on. You can use it as fuel. Magic if, yes. But now you also have something pretty good to help you out when you're in trouble. The magic truth, if you will. You're gonna need that one too. In fact, the more honest you are with yourself in acting, the better everything is going to work. Including, I'm just standing here being about the worst excuse for an actor that has ever crawled around in this can of worms. This is ridiculous. I'm just messing up the scene for everyone. That can create the best, most honest, awesome moment you can imagine. Stick with it. Anyway, that's later. That's medium advanced stuff. For now, take a look at those two realities. 2. Well, if you think that's tough, it can get one worse, because you might end up in an acting class imagining you're in a television studio. You know, it's an exercise to not knock into set mics and cameras and so on. At the same time, imagining you're in the reality of the scene. And we thought Al had it tough being in 2 places at once. You know, even that, you may have to take a look at how your own brain works. As we know by now, the brain is a lot more malleable than was ever suggested, than perhaps by yoga gurus and such like, who are people found a little bit crazy because of it. No, the brain changes a lot. And so your approach will always have to change. And with the magic if, you simply have to test out how your own mind responds and learn how to communicate with yourself. And you know what? I haven't even 100% told you how that's going to work. It's really that easy. I am here in this room, sitting on my chair, looking at a boring old wall in this case. What if there was an arrow flying through the air right now? Doesn't work, does it? In my case. Unless you really think like, oh, okay, whoa, I'm sorry. I just hit the floor right now. It happened to work. But didn't really do anything. I mean, I got out of the way, but that's it. Next one. See, my brain called the bluff, even with this one. No, my analytic brain, liking to punch holes into all my imaginary stories. How about, what if you're wrong? What if you got the impulse that, well, I'm here, you're crazy, stay put. This is gonna be silly. But what if you're wrong? Okay, yeah, that was a bit more scary. There you go. So, magic if application and a little bit of stunt practice on the side. I guess you're entertained for now. I got another tip for you though. No, I'm not going to leave you just now because this is important. You got to know that one. Talk about magic. There is one magic for you. For everybody out in acting and all kind of collaborative work, in this case, your scene partners. Cherish them. Honor them. Take a leaf out of Scott Bakula's book, because they're precious. You hold on to them, they hold on to you, you focus on helping each other out, and pretty much forget yourself, assuming you've done your prep, but even then, they can often help you out. Let's just say that's where the real synergy is, and that's where the magic action begins. And they'll knock everyone off their socks and come back for more. That's where the love comes in, guys. Thus spoke your Bavarian barbarian.
Hayden, do you have any news for us?
Hey, Albie, I definitely have some news for you. It's probably the most exciting news we've gotten for a while. It was found out at a recent Comic-Con that Don Belisario has recently completed a new Quantum Leap movie script. We don't know much about it, only that he's written it and that he had Scott Bakula and Dean Stockwell in mind when he was writing it. We don't know if it's meant to be a reboot of the original series or a continuation of the original series, but whatever happens, we definitely want to see it. And it's exciting, isn't it?
Zoe, what do you think about that?
I'm pretty excited about it. I don't know if Dean will be a part of it, and if that is the case, if he's not a part of it, I don't even know if it will happen, but if they can get it off the ground, I'm in.
You're in touch with Deborah Pratt, who's been keeping track of how Dean is.
Mm-hmm.
What's she been saying about him?
Well, I actually heard back from her after months of not hearing from her, just on Wednesday of last week. In March, Dean went to New Zealand to visit his daughter Sophia, and he dropped off the face of the planet. She says that she hasn't heard from him since he left for New Zealand, and he has not returned. He hasn't kept in touch since then. We haven't really heard anything from him at that point, from when he went to New Zealand.
We do know he's keen to do a movie, though, don't we?
Yes, because last summer he said that he was ready to do the Quantum Leap movie, and that was even before it was written. So I know that he's in if he's able to come and do it, if he comes back to the U.S.
Okay. Hey, that's a beautiful country.
Yeah. Hey, I don't blame him if he doesn't want to come home.
Yeah, he did a lot of work. He worked since he was a little kid. He might just, he earned it some time off to retire, you know?
Yeah,
Absolutely.
And if he wants to retire to New Zealand, more power to him. I would too.
I would too. That might be a plan.
I've been to New Zealand.
By a ferry?
What's it?
No, I went by plane. I actually, this was when I was about 9 years old, and I won a part in a Weet-Bix commercial. Weet-Bix is a famous breakfast cereal we've got over here.
Yeah.
And for some reason they filmed it in New Zealand, so I got a free trip to New Zealand.
Is that on YouTube?
Very nice.
It is actually. I'll have to find it and send it to you.
Yeah, that's going in the show notes. Hayden babies.
You'll have to see if you can find me.
All right, I'm sure I can.
I was just saying I went to college with a girl from New Zealand.
It's a beautiful country, and it's almost a continent, right?
It's definitely not a continent.
It's like an island?
Yeah, it's 2 islands.
Oh.
But
2 islands.
Australia is the continent.
Okay.
Yeah. And let's just say I went over there and it was like being in Australia just without any gum trees. So I was thinking what we should do is maybe throw around some ideas on what we can do as fans to try and help this movie get off the ground. I mean, let's face it, Dean Stockwell's not going to be around forever, so the sooner that it can be done, the better.
Say that.
I know, it's horrible, I know, but we've got to be realistic as well. Yeah, so what do you think, as fans, we can do to try and help this movie get off the ground?
Well, I think definitely lobby the studios. I mean, that's what Deborah said last year. Start lobbying the studios. Let them know that this is something that's wanted, because if the studios don't have feedback, they're just going to think, oh, nobody cares. So we have to make a noise. That's the only way we're going to be able to get it off the ground.
Absolutely. The other thing I was thinking too, have either of you seen the Veronica Mars movie?
Yes.
No.
Oh, okay. Well, finally, well, it's not bad.
A long
it's not
time
bad.
ago, we used to be friends.
Yeah. Oh, we're still not friends, Albie. That's not nice.
I haven't thought of you lately.
But,
yeah.
But it might surprise you that a great deal of the funding for that was actually crowdfunded on Kickstarter.
Crowdfunding. Very interesting.
So maybe it's possible that we can get all the fans together. We know that there are people who want Quantum Leap back. It's still got a huge cult following. So maybe we could try and organize a Kickstarter crowdfunding campaign, even if we don't even know what we're going to do with the money once we've got it. But if we've got it and it's there, then it at least shows the studios that, hey, people want this, and we're willing to put our money where our mouth is.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and we can at least, we can do our homework too and find out where it needs to go to get the production in gear and,
Absolutely. And the other thing too is we all know that everyone who's worked on the show, loves the fans, and wants it to keep going. I'm sure that we can convince them to put some little incentives up for us to bid on as well. So like they did with the Veronica Mars movie, they did things like having the stars do some autographs and some photos and video messages for people who donated some money to them. So
yeah, that's a great idea. For it to be successful, I would think you would have to have probably Don involved with it, or like willing to actually do it if he gets to a certain amount of money he thinks he needs to make it happen.
I know Deborah would like to see it happen.
I think she told us last time we talked to her on the phone about her idea for a Sammy Joe movie.
Oh, that would be awesome.
Yeah, that would be really good.
Tell her if she's looking for an actress, I want the part.
you look like you could be Scott's daughter, I think.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Like bone structure, nose. Come on.
Yeah, you're
a leading lady.
Yeah, an ingenue.
I'm an ingenue. Yes, I like that word.
But speaking of Don, Albie, you're the friend of the Don. Maybe you could get in contact with him and find out, first of all, some more information about this script that he's written, and also what you think or what he thinks we should do to proceed.
Absolutely, I can get a letter to him if we write one up and ask him if he wants anything like that, and if he gives us the go ahead, then of course, full speed ahead. He's an awesome guy. I think that day I spoke to him for almost an hour. I know the interview was only about a half hour long because there was a lot of stuff going on and we talked about other stuff. And I just know him to be a really genuine, nice person. And he's a good guy.
Awesome. Okay,
hey,
Don.
If you can get him on the Dean's list, please. Let me know.
Okay. Don, if you're listening, please contact us. We'd like some more information and we'd like to help you.
Yes. Mr. Belisario, if you've got an hour 3.5 of this podcast, please call Hayden.
Please, Uncle Don. Yes. Do it for Al.
Mm-hmm. Do you have any more Quantum Leap news, Hayden?
No.
Okay, for as far as QLP news, I'd like to say thank you to everyone that, donated to helping Heather and me and Serenity escape Hurricane Irma. And all those generous donations were very well appreciated, and thank you guys, the whole QLP crew, for getting together and doing a fundraiser with that audio commentary for Hurricane. It really helped. We, like many families in the United States, any one crisis that happens, which is we had to escape, the hurricane. It was coming right up Florida, so we had to get out of Florida, which is a very long state. And we only, had a few extra $100 than what our bills were and everything. So halfway to where we were going, which was Indiana, to Heather's dad, because that's the first place we were invited, we pretty much ran out of money. So at that moment, those donations started coming in, and we were able to make it to Juan's house in Colorado because the hurricane decided to come towards Indiana. So that was crazy. And at home, the house was without power for over 2 weeks. So we basically couldn't go home because both Heather and I work online, and there was no power for 2 weeks and no internet for 3 weeks. So luckily, Juan was able to invite us into his home in Colorado with his wife and 2 children, and we had a great time. We recorded the first part of this podcast, The Great Spontini, with that. But there were times where literally we were driving and the gas light was on and neither one of us had money. Heather was waiting to get paid, and I get paid monthly, so unless it's the 5th of the month, I'm not rich. We were hungry, and we just got a donation, and we were able to put gas in the car, and we were able to eat dinner that night. And without the QLP fans, we wouldn't have made it, and I really appreciate it, and I say thank you to all of you.
Well, you're welcome, Albie. We love you, and we love Heather, and we love Serenity, and anytime you need help, please let us know.
Thank you.
I second that motion.
Hopefully never again. That was horrible. But with this great community and all the listeners and all the people that I consider friends, we really did make it, and we appreciate it.
Yeah. Did you do a trivia segment?
Hayden, do you have any trivia?
Hang on, I've got to open up the file.
See, that's my part. I just asked the question.
I know, you're lucky. Albie, once again, I've gotten most of this trivia from Beyond the Mirror Image. It is available for sale still, not on the Kickstarter, but on Matt's website. We've got links for that on the page. But yeah, there is quite a bit of trivia. Let's have a look. Al is an expert at picking locks, and Sam isn't bad at it either. I guess that Al learnt that from all his time when he was on the road and after he'd run away from the orphanage. So, yeah, once again, Al knows everything, but in this case, I think there's a reason for it.
Misspent youth, let's say.
Yeah. Now, the French title of this episode translates to When Harry Met Maggie, which is based on the 1989 comedy When Harry Met Sally.
Little known fact, my favorite film ever.
Awesome. Well, until they make the Quantum Leap film.
Exactly.
Yeah. Now, Jamie jokes about Bill Bixby playing the Incredible Hulk, which of course he would from 1977. So a bit of funny foreshadowing there.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. Jamie says that Harry and herself have an audition for the TV show The Magician coming up, but this show aired its last episode on April 15th, 1974, which is nearly a month prior to the events of the Great Spontini, and it was never renewed.
I wonder if they thought they were going to make a new season. I'm trying to think in universe here. If they thought they were going to make a new season of it but didn't, or that they were just that Jamie and her dad were just operating on the wrong information, maybe.
I think it was probably just the writers didn't do their homework.
I try to figure it out. It was close enough.
Yeah,
like
that's it. It was close. Yeah, there's all. How long did we have plans for Quantum Leap after it was cancelled?
Exactly.
So we still do, and it's 27 years later or something.
Mm-hmm.
So. Now, all 3 times that we hear Al enter the imaging chamber, the door only opens, never closes. And when he surprises Sam in the trailer, the relocation sound effects plays, suggesting he's been somewhere else. Where has he been?
Where has he been? Do you have any guesses on
that? Maggie's bedroom. I think it's in his character. Now, Al says Sharon is his 3rd wife when it's already been established that she's his 4th, and Ruthie, whom he learnt the ways of Judaism from, is his 3rd. But it's well known that Al gets his wives mixed up, so I can forgive that one.
Yeah. I don't know. That's a good running joke that he gets his wives mixed up, but can you imagine getting your wives mixed up when you spend like years with each of them?
I know. We also have this funny idea in the fandom. Heather, keep your ears closed. There's spoilers. That once history is reset and he ends up back with Beth, that he'll have the same problem mixing up his 4 daughters instead of his 5 wives.
That I could imagine.
Yeah. Now, Dan Birch, who played Harry Spontini in the Mirror Shots, has a great look for a magician, which isn't surprising since he's an accomplished magician in real life. And he advised on creating the magic aspects of the episode. And you had an interview with him, didn't you?
I did. A great guy. We had fun talking about magic. I teach Serenity a lot of magic tricks, and she likes that too. But yeah, we had a good talk about magic, and I hope you enjoy the interview.
Yeah, and Dan Birch is also the brother of Universal's Director of Business Affairs, Cheryl Birch, and Cheryl Birch had a character named after her in Miss Deep South. I think she was the one who wanted to be the professional secretary and have many children, wasn't she?
That's funny. Yes. How about that? Full circle.
That's it. When Sam is putting on the light blue polo neck in the mirror, an inventive way of swapping the actors out is used, with Bakula's arm coming into frame first, then replacing Dan Birch entirely during a camera move. There's only a slight flaw. Birch's arm seems a little disembodied as Bakula's right hand pours aftershave into Birch's left. But other than that, it almost just looked seamless.
Wow, like magic.
You wouldn't... Yeah, almost like magic.
I'll have to watch that again. I didn't notice that. I didn't notice the disembodied hand feeling. So I'm going to watch that one more time. I usually do after I learn the trivia. I go one back, one more time, a sixth or seventh view.
Jamie says, smooth move, X-Lax. Although X-Lax, which stands for excellent laxative, was around in 1974, the full phrase didn't originate until the 1980s. So maybe Jamie's the one who invented it.
Could be. She was a pretty cool kid.
Now, Maggie doesn't seem to wonder how Sam suddenly knows in the middle of the court session that Jamie is in trouble. While this is passed off as Maggie's motherly instincts taking over to check that Jamie actually is all right, later on it's never questioned. In fact, the situation worked in Sam's favour, with Maggie hypothesising that it was due to the bond that Harry and Jamie have, thereby coming to the conclusion that they shouldn't be separated and helping her to make the decision to withdraw her petition for full custody. Now, that's very lucky for Sam and Harry, as it just as easily could have gone the other way. I actually agree with Steve Slater when he makes his very good point about the unsafe conditions Jamie had been living in. And also, no magician in their right mind would build a device that relies entirely on lock-picking to survive, without also having a fail-safe to prevent the spikes coming down if there's still weight on the table. So
absolutely.
I think there's quite a lot of criminal negligence going on there. So
yeah, no good magician, let's put it that way, designs a magic trick that could actually kill you.
Yeah, but it worked out because magic.
Yeah, because magic. Hand wavy.
That's it. Now, after 2 seasons of hitting it around a lot, Al finally breaks the original hand link, and thus has to use a new one, which is later nicknamed the Gummy Bear design, after he referred to it as a rotten pile of gummy bears in the leap back. However, the Gummy Bear hand link had appeared in the past 3 episodes without explanation, as the Great Spontini had been intended for broadcast earlier in the season. Production designer Cameron Burney explained that it finally achieved what Belisario wants. Dean Stockwell, however, was not a fan of the new design, saying he wanted his old hand link back.
Oh, I like the Gummy Bear one better, I think.
Me too.
I love the Gummy Bear one, but I can see where Dean Stockwell was coming from. It does not look comfortable.
No, but what's pain? Beauty is pain, right?
That's it. Pain is beauty.
Pain is beauty. I noticed on one of Tom Quinn's posts, I think we shared it on the Quantum Leap Facebook page, there was a Gummy Bear hand link made out of Lego. Looked pretty cool.
How cool is that? I'd buy that.
Yeah, me too. I'd buy the kit.
Come on, Lego, build the Quantum Leap hand link kit. Make a Ziggy kit as well.
There's thousands of us out here that would totally buy that.
Exactly. All right. Now, further evidence that production for the episode had been much earlier in the season than broadcast would suggest includes Robert Walterstaff returning as supervising producer, despite having left the previous episode, and technical advisor Rich Whiteside making his first appearance on set during this episode, prior to preparing for work on the Leap Home Part 2 Vietnam. On a side note, he was very impressed by Dean Stockwell's good nature in the face of childish pranks by the crew. It must have been so much fun to work on there.
Yeah.
I would have loved to have seen the things Dean did to Scott behind the scenes.
And some of the things that Scott did to Dean. I heard tell about a stripper being brought in and Dean being very, very shy. It's about the only thing that he and Al aren't alike with.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I also heard tell about a massive prank with cream pies as well. So I'll have to dig through my Leap Back DVDs because I'm sure that's where I heard about it. Yeah.
Yeah, those are great.
Now, Sam leapt out of the Watts riots in a terrible state, but is healed up for the episode. So does this mean he exists in a limbo state where he can rest and recuperate between the leaps? It would explain his inconsistently growing hair.
I have a guess on that. You know, I know you don't watch Star Trek a lot, Hayden, but the transporter can sometimes fix things, and maybe it's like a transporter where he gets dematerialized and rematerialized, and maybe it goes by a healthier previous pattern that was in the buffer or something.
Oh, that's a good idea.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I like the idea of limbo slightly better, though, just because of an upcoming episode, about 5 episodes away, something like that. Which was it? 8.5 months. Because we know that the baby can't exist inside Sam, and we also know that the baby didn't leap with Billie Jean because Al said she was empty when they checked. So where'd the baby go? It must have gone to limbo and stayed safe.
There will be a lot of discussion on that when we get there in 2020.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Hopefully we can. Hopefully we'll get there a bit before that.
In the meantime, I'll try to get pregnant just to see if it'll work.
Oh, good idea. Good idea. And if not, you'll still have fun trying.
Exactly.
Okay, well, that's all the trivia.
Zoe, are you excited for the next episode of Quantum Leap, Rebel Without a Clue?
I certainly am. I wouldn't say that it's my favorite one, but it's one that I've gone back and watched more than once and been like, ooh, this one's different. I definitely like the biker aspect of the whole thing. And that bit in the middle of the episode where they had Jack Kerouac coming in and saving the day was kind of cool.
Do you like bikers? Do you like bad boys?
Bad boys, not necessarily, but I do like that whole look of the 1950s biker, like the James Dean kind of look that they had. Those jackets were hot.
Okay.
It shows how hard Scott Bakula was willing to work as well, because Diamond Farnsworth said that Scott Bakula had never been on a bike before, and he was riding it like a pro after just half an hour. So he's up for anything, and he can do anything.
Agreed.
And he learns quick, too. That's neat.
I loved seeing all the old bikes. I'm like Al, I was definitely very turned on when I was looking at the bikes.
Ruling over the machinery, yeah.
Quantum leaping around in time, I've assumed many characters, but this was my first leap back as a dirtball.
Shane Funnybone Thomas, that's your name.
I'm a biker, Al.
It's September 1st, 1958, and you're somewhere about an hour south of Big Sur, California.
I'm riding with Dylan. Now I'm as free as he is.
She's not my problem, man.
Well, no, yeah, she is.
Why? When did every kid become my problem?
When you wrote that book.
Hey, dang it.
That bike belongs to his son!
Who's dead?
You don't know that!
Hey, I was over there, okay? I saw guys blown apart around me, all right? So don't you talk to me about it!
Stop it!
Come on, baby, let's play, huh?
You're drunk! You don't even know what's happening! Stop it! You're hurting me!
This leap has not been a whole heck of a lot of fun.
You're here to prevent a murder.
I'm looking forward to this episode, too, because I don't know if I told you guys yet, but I haven't never seen this episode yet.
What?
Really?
I must have missed it on the debut and in syndication. And I didn't skip ahead because I went to skip ahead and I saw that I hadn't seen it. And I was like, I'm going to wait. That'll be cool. It'll be interesting to see an episode I've never seen before.
I can't believe you've never seen it before.
Me neither.
I know.
And you'd think that because they show the leap of him leaping in with the motorbike in the opening theme song in the later seasons, that you'd go back and find it, wouldn't you?
Yeah, I don't know. I just never thought of it. And then I started watching it and I was like, wow, I haven't seen this one. Pause, stop. So we'll see. It'll be fun. Next time, it'll be my first time watching Rebel Without a Clue.
Awesome.
So we're popping your Quantum Leap cherry for once.
For once, yeah. There's that one episode I did not see, as far as I know. Should I watch Rebel Without a Cause first, or no? Does it matter?
I don't think it matters.
Okay, we'll do that. Well, with that, I'd like to say thank you again to all the listeners that helped Heather, Serenity, and I escape the hurricane and get back safe and sound. It wouldn't have happened without you, and I greatly appreciate it. And Juan, Gabe, tell us all about what you got going on.
It's the easiest thing in the world to do. You can go to our website, which is at www.totlb.com. You can find all our different social medias. The easiest way to get a hold of us probably is facebook.com/thinkingoutsidethelongbox, Instagram or Twitter @outsidelongbox, or you can shoot us an email at outsidelongbox@gmail.com. And of course, you can call the Michael Kirk Memorial Hotline. What's that again?
970-573-6148.
And of course,
if you rest in peace.
Very sad.
And of course, if you want to support us, you can find us at patreon.com/TOTLB. Check out our show. It's really funny. If you enjoyed our skewed sense of humor on this episode, you will enjoy the 69 episodes. Yeah, buddy.
They're 4 hours, but you can get over it.
Yeah, you'll be fine.
If they got this far in this episode, they're okay with 4 hours.
And legitimately, we do a lot of jerking around and acting like it, but we also have a lot of really great interviews on our show. So check it out, www.totlb.com. It's basically the best podcast you could ever listen to.
Ever.
I mean,
it's the Monday Night Raw of Baron Space
It
Productions.
is the Monday Night Raw.
It's the flagship.
Yeah.
We really should have Corey Graves open the show.
You totally could. Until next time, I'm Albie.
And I'm Heather.
And I'm Hayden.
And I'm Zoe.
I'm Juan.
I'm Gabe.
I'm the kid eating spaghetti.
Thank you for joining us for this episode of the Quantum Leap Podcast, hosted by Albie and Heather, with contributions from Hayden McQueenie, Jessie Newman, and Christopher DeFilippis. Visit us at quantumleappodcast.com and look for us on Facebook. To support the show, please go to patreon.com/quantumleappodcast. The Quantum Leap Podcast is edited by Albie, Allison Pregler, and Christopher DeFilippis, with voice talent provided by Juan Muro, Hayden McQueenie, Suzanne Smiley, Christopher DeFilippis, and Peter Vonasak. The production assistant is Jessie Newman. The executive producer of the Quantum Leap Podcast is Albert Burge. Juan Muro, Christopher DeFilippis, and Hayden McQueenie are the co-executive producers. The thoughts expressed on this podcast are those of the individual and do not necessarily represent or reflect those of the Quantum Leap Podcast, its partners, or affiliates. The Quantum Leap universe and all it contains is the property of Belisarius Productions and Universal Television. The Quantum Leap Podcast is not affiliated with Belisarius Productions or Universal Television, and no copyright infringement is intended. The Quantum Leap Podcast is a Barren Space production.
Recording. Juan, say something.
Check. Checkity check.
Gabe,
Chester.
say something.
Today on Thinking Outside the Long Box Podcast.
I like that.
That's very quiet.
So
I
me
know.
and
That's
Gabe
not
are on
how
the
I
same
talk.
channel. Heather, say something.
Hi.
So you and Heather are on the same channel. You okay with that?
I don't give
What does that mean? Does that is that some?
Well, we have right and left. There's only two, and there's four of us. So two of us are sharing a right,
that a
and
thing
two
that
of us are
matters?
sharing.
I guess I don't know.
It just depends on who's going to talk over each other. So
Yeah.
if two of us on the same channel talk over each other, he can't cut it out.
But I think that's
So
okay. The way
If
it's set up.
you and I talk over each other, he can separate it.
So
Like
basically,
post-editing.
every time Albie talks, I should interrupt.
Yes.
To make it so
No,
he
but
can't
I mean,
edit it out.
so
This is when I sneak my F-bombs in.
Okay. Do you have your notes and such?
I don't really have notes.
Okay. You got your notes?
Up here, baby.
All right. All right. This will be fun.
I totally didn't watch this stoned out of my mind.
All right.
I told her yesterday, I was like, just take drunken notes.
I was like, I don't even know. I don't need to. Well, I don't need to watch it 3 times either. Like, normally I could just watch it once, and then he'll be like, but we're going to watch
Why
it
are
again.
we recording?
Oh, it is.
Oh, this is recording.
Yeah,
okay.
it is recording.
Yeah, but none of this happens in the episode. You
But
know
it
how
might-
he is.
but it might
No, I
be.
don't.
It
Oh,
might come in
Albie
later.
will edit the
Yeah, none of
out
this
there.
makes the episode.
Okay, well, this needs to make the episode.
Okay.
This one
This will be in the episode.
So, you told me what episode it was going to be. What
Spontini.
Spontini. Thanks.
Spontini.
So,
We're off the rails.
Already.
So you told me what episode it was.
Right.
Right.
Episode 38. This is us.
Yeah, and you say, it's this episode, blah, 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 watch it 3 times.
Mm-hmm.
And I text you back immediately.
You dropped an F-bomb already.
I did. Immediately, I texted you back. Why do I need to watch it 3 times? No response. For 2 days. And then you're like, you ready to record? I was all... Why do I need to watch it 3 times? You never answered my question from 2 days ago. You can't leave me hanging.
So you watched it once, though.
I did watch it.
You know what's funny is that I told him this story and he still didn't answer you.
I know. So I assume. So he told me we watched.
He
it
Juan.
once.
You can't point.
Juan.
And thank you.
Juan, the other he.
Not me.
Not Heather, who's a she.
I don't know.
I mean, I don't want to.
We're
assume.
not trying to assume.
That's true.
Yeah.
You didn't inspect.
She might have a bigger piece than I do. Who knows?
Oh, I assume as much as mine stink. But no, so you watch 1 for enjoyment,
right?
2 for notes.
Yeah, 2 for notes, and then 3 for like anything you might have missed.
And we put the subtitles on the 3rd time.
0.00.
No, I mean, like, seriously, what was your GPA
in high school?
Yeah, you dropped out?
Because I went once a month until I was legally able to drop out.
Homeschool?
No, I just didn't go.
He didn't like that the buses weren't air conditioned.
Yeah, it was really hot in Florida, and the buses came way too early and they were way too hot. So I was like, I'm out.
No, still really hot in Florida.
Florida sounds like a festering boil to me. Like it seems like
we're
people
evacuees.
live there.
No, you're joking, right?
No.
Ashton, don't follow Albie's life example.
No, you don't want to do that.
Also, don't follow my life example.
Oh,
You know, like really, honestly, just try to live like Juan. Get
These
a
are
job
ways
as a
not
car
to
salesman,
live.
make some money.
Yes, I tried to be one. It didn't work out. I'm going to try again soon.
Don't worry. You'll get there.
Okay, so what I normally say is, you are listening to the Quantum Leap Podcast. This is episode 38, The Great Spontini. But I want you to say it in your live from Juan's basement. This is Juan, John, and Gabe, and do whatever.
Sold.